everybody to Crunch Time with Jeff, Booner, Lukas, and Gentry. We got a Friday show planned for you guys, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for it. We're going to talk Red Wings trade deadline, recap some of what they did and did not do. We got our guy, Michael Gentry, here to help us break it down. We're going to talk Scott Bischoff.
Shout out.
The man, the myth, the legend, Scott Bischoff, former scout. He's going to go through risers and fallers from the NFL Combine. We'll chop it up with him. We're also going to continue the conversation we had yesterday regarding the top 100 list, 101 list from PFF. The last 20 came out today. So we're going to get kind of through that, give some thought. It'll be a fun one.
That should be a fun one.
Also, Greg Newsome. Little Greg Newsome conversation, corner from Cleveland. Jeff Risdon came out and said that the Lions have inquired about him. So we're going to get to that in a second. But before we start, fellas, I want to give a shout-out to those who were here from the beginning. Ubaldo joined at the very beginning there. He's the first one in. Welcome to the show, Ubaldo. We got Eduardo O'Neill, Anakin Sky Ogre, Detroit Grit, Shift God, ETN, the fellas. Joining the platform. We appreciate you guys, everyone who joined first and joined now and joined in any time during the show. We do appreciate you guys for tuning in. How are we feeling tonight, fellas? It's Friday. It's March 8th.
Feel beautiful.
Going to the weekend. Same practice day. Hey.
What's that?
Oh, yeah.
It's the week before St. Patty's Day.
Tomorrow, okay. Yeah, a couple drinks will be had for sure. I feel good. We had a conversation today, all the fellas. Am I chopping up here, boys? Can you boys hear me?
We'll let you know.
You guys froze on me, so I was over here. Oh, no, we had the conversation. We got not an argument today, but we were going at it a little bit. So people who think that we make up our arguments or we stage everything, I could promise you we don't do that because we're gonna have some segments today that are pretty exciting, and I promise you those babies aren't staged. We're here. We're here. I'm ready for war, brother.
Not out, Boone.
I've never staged in any argument.
Yeah,
oh, trust me, I haven't either. And I've been in a lot of them.
It would be really hard for me to fake an argument, like have a stance on something and fake it, and not just be bored to death 5 minutes in talking about the subject. It's just pointless.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not like, Oh, by the way, wait, Mike, what, did you say something? Muted.
Mike's muted.
It's funny you say
Mike. Ain't fucking with Mike.
Nope, you say Mike. You say Mike's muted, but it's like Mike's actually muted, not Mike is muted.
Nope.
It's kind of
nothing.
There. All right. Well, Mike's going to figure that out. He can hang with us while we get kind of that figured out because we're all going to get into the Red Wings trade deadline, and he's going to help us do that. But first, and I think he doesn't want to talk about the trade deadline. I don't know. I think he's.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Oh,
yeah, I know. I'm talking through my laptop. I don't know. My mic's not working. I'm kind of having connection issues a little bit like Booner over there. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but
it's a storm, dude. There's a storm here in Michigan today, and it's killing everything. My internet's just been up and down, up and down. It's that people keep cutting out, cutting in, cutting out. I don't know. It's the first time I've had this issue. I'm with you, Mike.
So. Yeah, before next segment, I'll drop out and reset it real quick. But, yeah, we can talk Red Wings for sure.
Well, Mike, I don't want to lose you yet because we want to get to the NHL trade deadline. Of course, I saw some comments from Stevie, and he's, of course, on the thumbnail. So we're going to talk about it. And I know you watched the NHL trade deadline show. You were locked in. And it seems like the reasoning behind this. And I actually had a phone call with one of my good friends, and he's a huge Red Wings fan. And he called me today and he's like, hey, you hear anything? Because he knows Mike is like the go-to guy. He's like, did Mike say anything or anything going on? And we and you kind of talked about this. It feels like he's going the Brad Holmes approach where people like myself and others during this past NFL trade deadline, we're sitting there going, you bringing anybody in? You're bringing anybody in? And Brad Holmes is like, nah, we like the roster. And it worked out pretty well for him. What's kind of your takeaway from what happened today? Anything stick out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of weird. Like I talked about it last show. Everyone was getting traded on, Thursday, while the Red Wings were playing, or Wednesday when the Red Wings were playing. And so like it was slim pickings rather. And there was a few guys that they could have went after. And I think they probably should have added a defenseman or maybe a centerman. But I'm not too disappointed with it, and I know Yzerman's super confident with the depth of this team, and that's really how this team has gotten thus far. So I can't really be mad at it. Do I think that maybe should have added someone? Yes, but I mean, you'll kind of see where this team goes, and then maybe you'll move into the offseason and kind of address some of those needs. But they do have a lot of depth going into the playoffs, and some other teams around the league can't really say the same. So.
And I want to ask you too, man, like, what does this mean, at least for the young guys with the Griffins? I know he also kind of mentioned he's confident with kind of how they're coming along, Edvidson, so on and so forth. What kind of message does the lack of moves send to the guys that are coming up, guys that are developing? Because a guy like Edvidson who's playing really well, what does it mean for those guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, he talked about it. He had his press conference right after the trade deadline ended, and he kind of stressed that he was real confident in those guys and that it would kind of be like backwards to go out and make a move rather than just bring those guys up. And I know Berggren was actually scratched from tonight's game for the Griffins, and I know the Red Wings are running 11-7, 11 forward, 7D tonight. So I think Jonathan will be obviously added into the lineup. I think Edvinson, you still wait to the end of the year. But it's really good to see Yzerman, obviously a GM of his caliber, a player of his caliber, have confidence in those young guys and kind of steer away from making a bad investment that may hurt them in the long run because he is so confident in those young guys. So it may suck that we won't see a guy like Simon for a little bit maybe, but it's good to see that, you know, the guy at the helm still has extreme confidence in him.
Boone, how's your internet going? Are you good?
Yeah, can you guys hear me pretty well?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You got.
All right, just let me know. Cut me off or let me know if my internet, everything. I have a couple things. I have something on my end. I'm kind of trying to think about over here because with the Wings, like last year and everything, I know it was like I felt like going into this year it was like playoffs or bust. And the comments that were made by Steve today, like I wrote some down here, like the first one, like we're still trying to build. Can you guys hear me? Am I good?
Yeah, you're good.
I see you guys on the behind the stage.
We'll let you know, Boone. We'll let you know.
Yeah.
All right, I see you guys behind the stage laughing. I hope it's not at me. And then the other comment too that he was talking about, like we're not one of these top teams, so we don't want to give up picks. Still, we don't want to give up players. I don't know. It's interesting to me. Like I just don't know. To me, it just seems like this is like if you don't make the playoffs, it's like a huge disappointment. And I don't want to say it's like a step back in the rebuild because I'm not like I don't know that much about hockey, but to me it just feels like you're about to make the playoffs. Patrick Kane. We talked like 2 weeks ago about like re-signing him for a couple more years and like keeping these guys moving forward. Yeah. And obviously it's not like a disappointment to where it's like a major step back in the rebuild because you're probably going to make the playoffs next year. But I just look at it, it's like if you don't make the playoffs, like would Patrick Kane want to even re-sign here? Like that's just where to me it's just like you had like maybe you didn't have to make a move because you feel you're not at that point yet. But you guys, like, they have to make the playoffs. They have to bring someone up. They have to make some sort of like adjustment because if you don't make the playoffs, in my opinion, it's like a huge disappointment going forward. Because not only because I'm financially invested on this, but just as a fan of Detroit, the Red Wings, like it's like we've waited for this. This was the year to kind of take that step forward. And if you don't take that step forward, when is that going to happen? You know what I mean?
It'll be disappointing because I mean it's happened last year. You kind of were in the playoffs at this time, and this is kind of where you veered off and went on a losing streak. And you know they have been playing so well, and like you look at the standings, you don't know in a couple of years if a team like Buffalo or New Jersey is going to be struggling around this time. So like it definitely does suck because this division isn't getting any easier, but I don't know if I would say it's a disappointment because you improved in a lot of the areas. But when you look at it, like you said, the aspect, we haven't been in the playoffs for so long, and like you could have just maybe added a piece that maybe put you over the edge and you secure that. But I still am confident they're going to make the playoffs. How well they do in the playoffs, I mean, you still remain to be seen if they make it there. But I don't know. I have my hard time wrapping around my head that it's a disappointment like this early in Yzerman's tenure, not making the playoffs. And he's kind of said, kind of like how Brad Holmes said, this is going to take the steps and I'm going to do the right things as far as like building his team goes. So, I mean, I would be disappointed if they make the playoffs, but I still think they will. I still think they will. They got a lot of depth and they have a lot of players that are hungry, and these guys want to make the playoffs. And as far as Kane goes, I don't think there's a way that Patrick Kane doesn't come back to this team. If I'm giving my total honest opinion, I think he's back no matter what, playoffs or not.
Yeah, and you talk about it defensively, Mike. I mean, they've given up 16 goals the last 3 games, and it's not just defensively. I mean, offensively, they haven't been great either. Any concern tonight? I think it's a get-right game, personally, tonight. I mean, you got a team with the Coyotes who at home this season, they're almost 500, even though they're about 8 games under 500, around that number. You confident tonight's a get-right game for the Red Wings after a 3-game losing skid?
Yeah, I do. And Arizona shipped off a few players today on the defensive end, too, that may have kind of catered to the Red Wings' favor. But I think either way, it is a get-right game. They match up very well against this Arizona team. Obviously, they still have some young guys that can put the puck in the back of the net. But I'm confident the Red Wings pull one out today. And like you said, the goal scoring really hasn't been there. And I kind of stressed it last show. You see more and more every game what Dylan Larkin means to this team. Obviously, Alex DeBrincat, Patrick Kane, like I said, those guys kind of take the shine away sometimes. But Dylan Larkin, man, this team misses him every time he goes out. And it's been a tough go for him, and he has gone through some stuff. So it sucks. But, man, he means a hell of a lot to this team.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
go on.
Jeff. Sorry, I would say
no, you're good.
Just because obviously I'm not the most invested in the NHL. Were there any moves made around the league that make the path for the Red Wings more difficult? A, to get to the playoffs, or B, when they make the playoffs, this team's going to be a lot more competitive now than they were before?
I mean, for all the hockey people out there, they know Vegas loaded up and did everything outside of, really inside of their control as far as LTIR goes. But I mean, there's just, I don't want to say, there really wasn't, I mean, Carolina acquiring Jake Gensel was probably the biggest move, and they would have to play them. So I guess I would say them, but there was just a lot of like steady moves, kind of like depth pieces tossed around the league. And a lot of those moves were like, you had to give up a hole to get some of these players. So like, I can see why Yzerman was kind of stingy as far as his picks go and his prospects go, because if, like how Brad Holmes is doing, if some of these guys aren't going to be there for long term and they're building this team for long-term success, he was kind of steering away from it. But like I said, if there's one team that won the deadline, I would say it's Carolina, because they probably got the best forward available, and that's really what they needed. They're a gritty team all through their lineup. They're great defensively, so adding a goal scorer to that already deadly lineup is going to work out well for them.
And this will be the place for at least all Red Wings coverage, because we got our guy Michael Gentry. Will be following the season along. I think they'll still make the playoffs at this point. They got what's up, Boone?
No, you can finish your thing. I've got something when you're done. I just want to throw that up there.
Is it Red Wings related, or
it is Red Wings related?
Yeah, then go ahead.
I've got a Booner bet tonight here. I went all in on something here. I went all in on, I believe in Gentry. You could tell me if you're like Booner, that's a bad play. And I'm going to pull it up to make sure I get it right, because I was between 2 different guys. So I want to make sure I have the right guy. But I said the Red Wings have to win this game today. So I went Red Wings money line, and then I can't remember. This is where it is. So if you guys want to bet this with me, I'm trying to remember here if I took DeBrincat 2 shots on goal or Patrick Kane 2 shots on goal. I cannot remember which one I did, but I know I did one of them, 2 shots on goal. Let me see if I can get it up for you guys so we can get that right. But it was like basically plus money, like right on. It was Patrick Kane, two shots on goal in Detroit Red Wings money line, basically plus money.
Oh yeah, no, I like that. I mean, I think Patrick Kane has had 2 shots on goal all of but 3 games for the Red Wings, if I'm correct. Someone can double check me on that, but he pretty much gets 2 shots on goal every single game. And then DeBrincat, it's same way. I mean, some nights he has been off, but when you're a player like him and you're posted up on the power play, just ripping it at net, you know, he's going to get at least 2 of them on net. And especially with Dylan Larkin being out, just kind of brings more attention to him in the offensive zone. So he'll be seeing the puck a lot. So I mean, either one of those guys getting 2 shots on goal, I like, and I do like the Red Wings winning this game. They got to break the slump. This game means a lot now after you, like you said, you dropped the last 3. So
bang bang Wings gang.
I like it. And if I was to bet anyone to score, I would actually bet DeBrincat too. I think he gets in.
There you go. We appreciate you, Michael Gentry.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you for joining us, Gentry. We appreciate your time, bro.
All right, see you guys.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to move on here to kind of the Greg Newsome stuff because I do have some thoughts on it. I'm curious what you guys think. And, you know, Jeff Risdon, who does great work, by the way. He's actually somebody I want to get on the program if he dedicates some of his time. He'd be a great guest because he kind of does both. He knows a lot about the Cleveland Browns, but he also knows a ton about the Detroit Lions. And, of course, this makes a ton of sense because the player he brought up is Greg Newsome, corner for the Cleveland Browns, who they actually took late in the first round a couple of years ago. And his fifth year, they have to kind of make a decision, exercise his fifth-year option or not. Well, you know, they got kind of a clutter at outside corner. They got, of course, Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson, and Greg Newsome II. And Jeff Risdon kind of talked about that. Kind of talked about in his article, lionswire.usatoday.com. And he said that there is interest, or it should be a potential trade target. Not necessarily that the Lions have called, but he should be someone that the Lions should reach out to. And it's not just Greg Newsome. Like, it's not just, hey, would you like Greg Newsome? But the question I have for you guys is, how should Brad approach kind of revamping this corner room? Are you on the side of swing big, like a John Macaroon talked about when he was on the show? He's like, yeah, go get L'Jarius Sneed, go get Marvin Harrison Jr. By the way, love you, Doc. But he talked about getting a L'Jarius Sneed. Or are you in the camp of just get an upgrade? Someone that's cost effective. Where do you kind of what side of the coin are you guys on before we even get into Greg Newsome stuff?
I mean, I'm going to be pretty consistent with it. I think that I've been the last few weeks on this is I'm pretty far on the side to where I don't think they have to go out there and spend a ton of money and give up a first round pick for L'Jarius Sneed. Like, I don't think I mean, it would be lying if you said it didn't help the football team out and it makes you better because you added L'Jarius Sneed, one of the best corners in the game right now. But what's going to be better for the team to go win a Super Bowl in long term? I'm on the fact of let's save that first round pick where you can go get someone to add to the defensive line or even, you know, a corner if you need that and draft a corner at some point in the draft. Save all of that money and just go get some of these guys that are available. Stephon Gilmore, Darius Williams, like you can draft. We've been all in on Max Melton. Like there are guys, Greg Newsome now, like there are dudes that, like we said, Brad is going to have options. I'm on the side here, and I'm going to stay very consistent on this. I just think you can kind of build your team a lot better. I think a lot of people are stuck on this like 1 year, like, let's go all in. And I've brought this up before. What happens if you go all in and you spend all this money, give up a first-round draft pick, and you end up not winning the Super Bowl next year? And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's like, what happens if like, you go all in on 1 year and you don't win it? Like at that point, if you know what I mean, like you just went to the NFC Championship game, you can still keep building how you were building and you can be consistent and go back to the NFC Championship game without a L'Jarius Sneed. Like that's not, you don't need him to go do that. You need more depth. You need to add more pieces. We talked about it yesterday, adding 2 or 3 safeties to this roster and guys that are going to be able to actually play and affect the game. To me, it's all you need to do is on the other side of that ball or on the other side of Cam Sutton, you just need to upgrade and get someone who can do something. Because as bad as they were, they went to the NFC Championship game with the guys they had, and as bad as they were. So I'm gonna stay consistent. I don't know where you guys are on this. We really haven't talked about this in about a week, but I'm gonna stay very consistent to where I would rather have 2 or 3 of these guys come in, draft a guy, than just go give up a first round pick where Brad's been that good at, and spend all of this cap money when you have to pay guys in the future. Like that's just where I'm at with it. Like let Brad do what Brad does best. Like let him be Brad. Let him do what he's done the last 3 years to get us to the NFC Championship game. Why would he just go out and be like we're not one player away, guys? If I'm just going to be honest, we're already there. Like I get one player away. Like we just had a 17-point lead in the NFC Championship game to go to a Super Bowl, and you probably have a chance to compete in that Super Bowl. Like we're here. Like we're here now. Now you need to build depth. You need to build the defensive line, the corner room, get another weapon, make sure line stays. There's no reason just to go break the bank on one guy just because it's a cool name and he just won a Super Bowl. All right,
Booner, I got a question for you, and this is strictly a question. Like I want to just pick your mind on this because the reports came out today. Can't remember where exactly from, but it said L'Jarius Sneed right now asking prices for a 2nd-round pick. What's your reaction when you hear that? Because I was with you. I thought it'd be a 1st-round pick. But the fact that he's going to have to get extended once you sign him is probably why he's going to be a 2nd instead of a 1st. So what are your impressions when you think of, okay, maybe you can get a L'Jarius Sneed for a 2nd-round pick instead of a 1st?
I'm just more so stuck on the money side of things with it, to be honest. Like, I'm fine giving up the 2nd and if we can keep the 1st, but to me, it's just like 19 million. Like we talk about the money with Brad and all this. You're going to have to re-sign guys next year and the year after. And you're going to have to give Snead a 4-year deal, probably, and 3-year deal. Like the money, it's just like, if you're willing to take that deal, who are you willing to kind of part ways with on this team? One of these bigger players that you have on. So I just don't think people are looking at it logically. And I get where people are like one player away. Like we're one player away. That's so short term to me. Like, you just went to the NFC Championship, guys. We're here. Like, the one player, to get to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. But what happens if you don't do that? And now you're in cap hell for the next 4 years because you signed him, and now you're moving things around and you lost picks, and it's just not logical to me. If they do it, I'm a Brad guy, so I'm in on it. But I would rather them not.
I don't like the idea. I mean, I'll basically repeat what I've been saying. If he goes out and spends money, which I don't think he will. I'm talking about significant money, signing a max contract. I'd rather it be on the defensive line. So that's my kind of thought process on it. But I don't think he does either or neither. I think he would much rather get guys that are cost effective, evaluate and draft talent like he's been doing, and kind of keep this ship sailing. That's my opinion on it. Even a guy like L'Jarius Sneed, I mean, the second round pick thing, like, I'm still not interested, just because of like what Booner said. Not only are you giving up draft capital, you also have to extend him. Like, to me, I'm not interested. I get L'Jarius Sneed would be a big move, and people feel like the Lions are one player away, but that's not a real thing. There's that's not a real thing. No one's one player away. It's not. And Brad said that. Like, that's not how that works. You need more than one player. Yes, L'Jarius Sneed would absolutely help, but you still, guess what? L'Jarius Sneed's walking in. What's your defensive line look like? Is it the same? Because people keep talking about if you add another edge rusher next to Aiden, to me, that should be the focus. I mean, because what good is L'Jarius Sneed if he has to cover for 6-7 seconds? Like, you look at the Chiefs' defensive line. You guys love Mike Dana. I mean, they had Chris Jones, Mike Dana over there. And also,
he played 70 snaps for a Super Bowl winning team, Jeff. 70% of the snaps.
All jokes aside, they had a defensive line. So that's what the Lions need too. It's not just adding a corner and they're over the top. Like, there's a lot more work to do. But the Greg Newsome stuff, like, hold on, let me put this on. Is this the guy that is being rumored to come to the Detroit Lions? This is the man right here. This is your
better
king.
Not be slandering Greg Newsome.
This is your king.
You better not be slandering Greg
Don't
Newsome.
go at Greg Newsome, man.
I'm super excited, but I mean, obviously,
guy's got
challenge of
Uno cards on his glasses.
It was probably like a bet or something with the fellas, dude. That means
it's hard.
It's a culture guy. Don't make fun of being a part of a good culture. What are you doing here, Jeff?
Guys, he did that before a wild card game. Like, imagine he's playing for Dan Campbell. Everyone's locked in. He comes with Uno cards. Hey, guys,
you're reaching here. You're reaching.
Yeah, now we're hating on guys for having fun.
You watch.
It's not about not having fun. Hold on. It's not about not having fun, but like, he's not. And I don't mind Greg Newsome. You're gonna have to pay him. He's coming up soon. And I get that. He's not gonna command nowhere near L'Jarius Sneed. But like, he just doesn't, to me. If you guys read around on Greg Newsome, and the more I saw this news, I've been kind of doing some research. Browns fans are not a fan of him because of his mentality. Like, he doesn't. I mean, they're down 2-3 scores and he's celebrating. He's pulling up in Uno glasses. Like, to me, that doesn't seem like a. I don't know.
Guy who has fun playing ball.
You know what I really like doing? I just like watching Greg Newsome play football. He's not the biggest corner in the world, but he's a long corner that shares a lot of similarities with Denzel Ward, and he's produced at a high level. You talk about in Cleveland, they play in shitty weather where they got a lot of games like against Pittsburgh. There's a lot of situations where the other offenses just running the ball. Greg Newsome is a great tackler. He's scrappy. I think if you have him as your CB2, you are in a great situation. The reason they're so quick to move off of him is because they're doing the same thing right now with Martin Emerson, who's turning into a dog. And then they have Owusu Koramoah in the back. Like, they have a lot of guys in that secondary that they have to re-sign. So Greg Newsome, he's not as good as I think right now as Emerson, but he's still a damn good corner that Detroit needs. So if we're talking about bringing in Darius Williams, intangible wise, and just not to mention just like watching their tapes, Greg Newsome, he's bigger than Darius Williams. And I would put him damn near the same level as Darius Williams as far as what they've done in their career. Obviously, Darius, the teams he's been on, had more success, but Greg Newsome is a dog.
Yeah, I'm not denying he had a good year last year. He did.
He's been good since a rookie, man.
To me, Greg Newsome is like, if they go get him, I'm fine with it. I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, they got Greg Newsome. Like it's an upgrade.
You're sleeping, I think, a little, Jeff.
Where would you rank him in terms of corners?
Can we just act like he's a free agent, kind of stack him up?
Well, give him like you think he's top 15 in the league?
Corners?
Yeah.
Like
top 10?
No.
Top 20.
He's probably like top 25, 30. Like he's a great cornerback 2 and like an elite cornerback 3. And Lions, they need a cornerback 2 and 3 right now. So that's what I'm saying. Greg Newsome, like bring him home.
Was he on the top 100 list?
What'd you say?
Was he on the top 100 list?
I don't think so.
I doubt it. No.
Darius Williams was.
That's fine. Darius Williams is 5'9". The Lions need you could bring Darius Williams and Greg Newsome. That'd be a great
Let's do that.
offseason.
I'm in. He's only I saw here too. He's only 23 years old. Like he's still young, Jeff. Like he still has like some room to grow. Like you're 23 years old in the NFL. Like you have a lot of room to get better and grow and learn. And like that's young. That's a young NFL player.
And he's playing against George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins twice a year. And if you remember, the team that gives the Bengals the most issues is the Browns secondary. And Greg Newsome in those games plays very well. And I know, obviously, the Ravens don't have any great receivers, but Lamar Jackson, they had Denzel Ward there, correct? So they're going to go to the wide receiver 2 a lot. And who's man-to-man with the wide receiver 2?
Lucas, you forgot the biggest point of them all, the Uno cards. You forgot the Uno cards.
Yeah, can't do that. When you have Jamal Williams up there with anime and all that, CJ GJ rapping and posting, like there's so many.
I thought Jeff was frozen for a second.
It's like to me, like the Uno stuff, like it's not even like
he's not locked in enough for Jeff.
No, I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to
enjoy and have fun.
I'm not trying to go like boomer on you guys and be like, oh, Uno. And like the whole CJ waving thing, like people were so upset about that. But a guy with Uno on top of his Uno cards on his glasses showing up to, by the way, a wild card game. And like CJ did it, of course, in a big game. He's waving to the crowd. People don't like that. I don't know if Dan and them like that stuff. I don't know. Maybe they like him. Maybe they think, you know what, he's a good football player. But hold on. But it's not just me. The reason why I feel this way is if they sign him, cool. If they don't, I'm not going to be like, that was a big miss not getting Greg Newsome. Like to me, it's an upgrade because they're so bad at corner, but I'm just not pounding the table for him. And then B, how much I've read about how people in Cleveland don't like Greg Newsome. Like to me, that's a red flag. Like I don't, maybe I'm overstepping there, but from what I've read, people in Cleveland are not a fan of him at all. I mean, that's just, it is what it is.
I missed the first part of the segment.
I've been to a lot of Browns games, and and I'm not saying there's not Browns fans out there that don't, but they're screaming at Deshaun Watson, David Njoku, and a lot of other people before I heard him get brought up. I don't know. Like I just think you went down a negative rabbit hole. Maybe it wasn't on purpose, but I think that was just the way it happened.
Gentry, what were you saying?
No, I missed the first part of the segment. Did they say like what the asking price is as far as trade, like what you would have to give up trade?
I've got it here if you want it. I've got it said.
I didn't know if I missed it.
This isn't confirmed, but he basically said this is potentially what it could be. It could be the number 73 overall pick, so a third round, and a next year 4th round, and then potentially you'd have to extend and re-sign him to a 3-year, $41.5 million deal. So
it's a little too much.
Just giving up 12 assets and then signing someone for that much.
Yeah. I don't think he's worth 2 picks. If it was just like the 73rd overall pick, that's one of those things where it's like, all right, when the Lions are picking 73rd, play Greg Newsome highlights, and I'd be perfectly fine with it. And if they did that, but you're giving up a 4th and then you got to re-sign him as well, I don't think that's worth it. I hope they find a way, though. I'm not pounding the table, but it's close. It's close.
Just rather have Brad go get his own guy.
Yeah, that's where I'm
at. Not give up picks,
Maybe I was a little aggressive with the Uno stuff. I was
you pulled that out of nowhere, dude.
But my point was like I'm like you said, I'm with you, Lucas, but you're probably more on the side of getting him than I am. But we're kind of in the same thing. It's like to me, I think that you can. I don't know. It's not something I'm like, yes, Greg Newsome, baby.
Yeah, I kind of am. I kind of am.
You're like a lot more. I think we're all in agreement, though, how they should approach, kind of revamping this corner room. It should be cost effective, somebody to come in, be solid, You draft a player, maybe a Kamari Lassiter. I see him mocked around the Lions. So, who knows? Or it's, Max Melton. There's other options. Who knows? You can do whatever you want. Quinion Mitchell, if you trade up, there's some options out there. Terrion Arnold, Nate Wiggins, all these corners.
You haven't said the main one yet.
Kool-Aid McKinstry.
No.
Who?
Out of Rutgers.
Max Melton.
He said Max Melton.
Right.
Oh, I did.
That's
yeah,
my favorite one, dude. I might die on the hill. I want that man in Detroit.
So you probably would have said Ennis Rakestraw, to be honest with you. I thought that's where you were going.
Fully out.
No.
Fully out.
Well, speaking of a man who knows about all these corners, and Ennis Rakestraw, for that matter, is our good friend, Mr. Scott Bischoff. He joins the program. Of course, he has his list of risers and fallers from the NFL Combine, and we appreciate his presence as he joins us so often. You can check Scott out. He's a Detroit Lions and NFL draft analyst at DetroitLionsPodcast.com, staff writer at FootballGuys.com. Links are in the description for all that. Scott, how you doing today, my man?
I'm good. I'm better than I was last time. I had COVID last time we talked, and it was probably very obvious to you guys that I had COVID brain going on because it was bad.
I give you credit. You joined even with COVID. You're a real one, Scott.
Dude, it was bad and it was embarrassing. So I wanted to apologize to you guys first because you guys asked me a couple questions and it was just like, "What's my name?" Who am I? Seriously, it was a thing. So much better this time. Happy to join you guys. How are you all?
We're good, Scott. We're
good.
Fired up. We are fired. We went to the combine. We got.
I saw that.
We got in our Scott Bischoff, our Russell Brown bag a little bit. We're checking out corners. We're taking little notes. We're trying to do as best we can. And I'm happy you're on today because we kind of discussed some of our own risers and fallers from earlier in the week. I'm curious who you have, and I'm interested. And we'll just kind of play off who you have, and we'll mention some that maybe we saw in our own.
Okay. Some of these guys are like I would consider them out of reach for specific to Detroit, like a player like Quinion Mitchell, right? We would all go nuts if the Lions decided they wanted to give up what they had to move up to say, 8 or 11 or 12, whatever, to take a player like Quinion Mitchell because of the size and the elite movement ability, running in the low 4.3s the way he did. I mean, that's checking boxes. I just don't think it's super realistic from a Lions perspective, but definitely he is a player I thought who solidified his position as maybe the first defender off the board. Another one I thought looked really good was Troy Fatanu, the tackle from Washington. There was some speculation earlier, I would say around the national title game. There was speculation about whether he was going to have to go inside and play guard in the NFL. And I think at this point, he's just kind of erased that. He's got 34.5-inch arms, plenty long enough arms. The arm issue thing is I don't know how long you guys want to talk about arm length, but
it's important. It's important.
It is, but it's a function of how well you move your feet. So if you don't move your feet and you don't have good footwork, the arm length can help you a little. But generally speaking, arm length is a function of how well you move your feet. If you move your feet well, you can get away with having shorter arms and you can be okay and you're fine. Specific to him, he measured great. Did you guys see any of the O-line drills or were you already out of there by then?
So
we were out by then.
Yeah, we caught running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, and tight ends.
Deep.
So you got the pretty ones.
See?
Yeah. Wait,
that's the one. If I had to pick, those are the ones I would go to see.
Yeah, see, you get it. You get it.
For sure. But he can play 5 positions. He can play either tackle position, either guard position. He could play center. His ability to move was different than a lot of the tackles on the field. And I think he went from, again, maybe 2 months ago, people thinking he was going to be a guard to he's a high-level player who I think is going to be in the top 15 range just because of the way he moves. He's an interesting prospect. Taliesin Fuaga, the Oregon State guard, I think is going to be a very early pick.
I think he's the best tackle.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Joe Alt fan,
besides Joe, yeah, that's my fault.
No, because I mean, I think they're different players. Some people think that Joe Alt is too tall, and that he doesn't have some of the functional athleticism to hang because he is so tall. So you have to buy into his abilities, his athletic tools to confirm whether or not you think he can live up to it, because he is really 6'8" and I want to say 6'8" and 5/8", right? With 34 arms, and
almost
he's
6'9".
huge, right? It's like normally tackles are 6'5", 6'6", and when you get a guy that tall, leverage is a problem. It just is. Really quick, explosive edge players and even tackles are going to get under him and move him, but he moves his feet so well. And so interestingly that he kind of mitigates a lot of that stuff. But Fuaga is the real deal. He is a really, really good player. I could see the Chargers at 5 just saying, we're cool with him playing right tackle for us. We love his mentality. We love the fire, and just settling on that. And we don't even want to trade back. We want to run the ball, and he's a part of that. So I thought he looked really good. Some of the other ones who I thought rose in the process was Wisconsin center Tanner Bartolini. Looked really athletic. He is going to have issues with bigger, quicker, more powerful interior players at the NFL level because they're going to walk him backwards. But from an athletic standpoint, if you put him in an outside zone system where you're asking him to just run to space and block whatever shows up, yeah, he moved like a pretty rare guy. A player we talked about, I think last time, I don't remember, Mason McCormick, the South Dakota State dude. He's a dude. I mean, he just is a dude. I know it's a small school. I think sometimes, when we hold the small school stuff against players, I get it, but when you watch him on film and then you see the athletic stuff, I think we talked about the short shuttle being under 4.47.
Yep.
And he was 4.45. So he ticked the number there. That's a guy I think that I would be extremely excited about if the Lions grabbed him on day 2. Just knowing that he's going to come in and play right away as a guard, also as a center if you need him to play center. That versatility is huge with Ragnow's situation with the injuries kind of stacking up. And Penn State tight end Theo Johnson looked ridiculous. I don't know what's in the water and up there in Happy Valley, but they produce athletic, freaky dudes all the time. Both Texas receivers I thought looked really good. Both have questions about how they fit in this draft. Like, are you drafting Xavier Worthy at 165 pounds? I know he ran 4.21. You guys got to see it. It had to be pretty cool to see. But at 165 pounds, Adonai Mitchell, I think, has more questions about his game, even though he's bigger, but he tested great too. And then Brian Thomas, the LSU wide receiver, I like his game. I think if if he ends up, let's say he ends up in Detroit and we all go nuts because they took a receiver in a good way. Like they need a receiver, right? It's going to take him a touch of time for him to figure out the full route tree. But the things that he does are his movement ability is really crazy. But he's got a basketball background. So if you watch his game, you can see it. So the little bit of the rebounding and his ability to get open comes from that basketball background. I thought he looked fantastic. The jumping, the speed, the athleticism, the quickness, all that, the footwork. He was dynamic. And the last one, it's Ladd McConkey.
Yeah.
Loved him.
Great one. Loved our jerseys made now. The 40 was a bit of a surprise. I mean, he's quick, and we should have seen this. There's a play 2 years ago where Brock Bowers is running down the sideline. He's scoring from, say, 60 yards. And McConkey shows up in the screen like at the 20-yard line, and Bowers is around the 10-yard line. And they're both running full speed. And by the time Bowers gets into the end zone, McConkey's almost caught him. And it's like, this guy can flat out fly, right? So when you do everything he's done in the pre-draft process, which is blow up the Senior Bowl, all that stuff, come to the combine, you're an incredibly efficient route runner. You can do all of it as a route runner. And now you see the speed and quickness. It's like, okay, first round player Ladd McConkey. Like, I would think the Chiefs would be looking at a player like that thinking that's a dynamic player for us. But I think we talked about it last time too. I know he's redundant with Amon-Ra, but I think that's good. And Jared Goff loves reliability with his receivers, and Ladd McConkey is a very reliable route runner as far as where he needs to be and getting to his landmarks and being trustworthy. There were some players who really did not help themselves at all. Braylon Trice, the edge player from Washington, looked rough.
And he showed up lighter, didn't he? He showed up like 20 pounds, 30 pounds lighter than he usually does.
I just think he's limited athletically, and it shows up on film. It does. He struggles to turn the corner, but he went from a player that I know was being mocked early in the mock process to the Lions at 29 to maybe a third-round player at this point, just because he's limited athletically. You guys were talking about Rakestraw when I came on. He did not help himself all that much this weekend. He just didn't. He measured smaller than I think everybody expected. With him, there's a lot of media hype with him because he tackles. So, you watch games and he'll step up and hit, and it's like, oh, look at this corner, blowing people up, and
Evan Witherspoon. I've heard people say that
love that. They really do. So, but I think with what he weighed, which was in around 183, to run what he ran was not a great number. His teammate, I think, is a better prospect.
You put us onto him.
He's a good player. It's really, it's not a player that you'd want to take in round one, but if you're stumbling him into him in round two, that's good. Bucky Irving, the running back from Oregon, had just, when you come into the combine with size issues, everybody thinking you're too small, and then you're slow, it's not a good combination, right? Like, Scott Bischoff, bald and fat. Not great. Not a great look. No. And then the last one I had, and then we can get into the guys you saw, Audric Estime from Notre Dame. One of the weirdest workouts I think I've ever seen, because he jumped really good.
40
and
was brutal.
The broad jump was good, but in the whole when scouts talk about stiffness, right? If you want to be able to, in your mind, for the rest of your football watching experience, to define stiffness in your mind, it would essentially be the way he looked when he ran his 40. Yeah, I have never seen a stiffer, like there was no flexibility or anything the way he ran. So that is stiffness right there is what you see. And that's not a good thing. So, he came in heavy and he did some good things. And I thought he was really good in college. I thought he was very productive. And I thought he would be, in range to be one of these, it's at the point where people are taking running backs now. It's a matter of taste. It's, what do you want out of that position? But for him to run the 40 and the 4.7s like that, it was just, it was not great. So, there were others, but those are the ones that kind of stood out to me.
Well, before the fellows get to some guys they notice, and I think I know where they're going. I'm going to go a different direction. Just bring up someone that I thought impressed, and someone that Lukas actually put the fellows onto, and that's Ricky Pearsall from Florida. Yeah. And Scott, I didn't know much about Ricky. I know he was at ASU. Herm Edwards loves him, absolutely loves him. He did 17 reps on the bench, which I think was 7th. Third in his vert was 42. First in the 3-cone drill. Third best 20-yard shuffle. 4.4 140. What did Ricky? Because this wide receiver class, Scott. There's probably going to be what you could say 20 guys you could probably rank in the first couple of rounds. What did Ricky Pearsall do for his draft stock?
So I think he went from a player who was going to have to deal with competition in his draft slotted area to now being like the alpha in that group. So let's say there are 7 or 8 guys who are going to go in the first round. And then, the draft resets and now it's Friday and there's still a group of wide receivers who are available, who are really good players. And instead of being in the middle of that mix or being talked about in that mix, he kind of heads the mix just because of the athleticism and everything that he does do. Even if some players like even if McConkey were to fall out of that 7 or 8, whatever it is, in round 1, I think the stuff that Pearsall has done on film and backed it up the way he did with that workout puts him at the top of let's say the second tier, meaning round 2 receivers. Mm-hmm. So he's really helped himself and he's put himself in an advantageous position. I think about like Ricky Pearsall in Carolina with Bryce Young, and it's not the greatest thing because you still need more, but it's a great start. He's a very good player. His workout was spectacular and it matches the stuff you see on film.
What about you, Boone?
Yeah, so I have 2 guys here, Scott, and I want to see where you're at with both of them. One's kind of one that, and I think it's the same for all of us here, where we had these conversations when we were leaving the combine. One that kind of moved up draft boards and one that potentially dropped. The one that moved up, I have here Mikey Sanders still out of Michigan. It seems like I'm starting to see him more on some hopping, and Lukas is someone too who he's done mock drafts and he thrown him in the end of the first round, second round now. And then obviously the other one here, and I've gone back and forth a little bit with some of the guys on the show here, but Keon Coleman, to me, it is going into the combine. I felt like he was a potential see him at the end of the first round, that Chief spot. If the Lions went a weapon, that Keon was in that situation. To me, it felt like he's kind of not going to go in the first round at all now, and it's more so second round and didn't help his stock at all. What are you thinking on both of those guys? Is that kind of the right analysis on that from the combine?
I think you've got them both pegged right. So in having some conversations with others in the industry, the idea of, all right, you're at pick 29 and you need the best football player available, right? And there's an argument to be made that it is Mike Sainristil still. Mm-hmm. I know he's undersized, but it's hard to see a guy like that busting. So he's going to play for you at some level on your defense. He's going to play at a high level for you.
Yeah.
I'm probably the wrong person to talk to about this because I would love for him to be a Lion, even if that meant you took him at pick 29. There's a part of me that thinks that he's not necessarily going to get past Dallas in this draft. Like if I were doing a mock draft of like, this sounds nuts, but this is a possibility, he would be a player I would put in there. The intangibles, the intelligence, all that stuff on top of the physicality, because that's the thing with him is that people are going to knock him for being a little bit small, but he doesn't play that way. He hits, he's very intelligent. He understands what offenses are trying to do. I like him as I don't think he's going to go in round 1, but I would completely understand if he did. And I think it would be deserved. He's a really, really good football player. I think one of the best football players in the entire class. Keon Coleman reminds me a touch of, do you guys remember the Kenny Golladay days in Detroit?
The days of hope. Days of hope.
He needed a player who was going to put the ball in a certain spot for him to be able to use his big body, to box out defenders and make plays down the field. And as soon as either Stafford got hurt or he didn't have Stafford, all that went away because most quarterbacks are not going to give guys like that chances that are high danger chances. And he needs those. He ran a 4.64, 4.63, something like that, which is not
4.64.
Yeah. So, it's not like he's slow, but he's not super fast either. And then there's a little rawness in the way he runs routes where a lot of the stuff he does is contested catch because it has to be, because he's not really able to run past defenders. So it was a disappointing. I know he's been productive and all this stuff. It just was disappointing to see some of the speed or the lack of speed show up and how that translates to games. It doesn't mean that he's not going to work out as a good player. It's just he needs to go to the right place. Like if he was in Detroit, I would say there would be no chance of him being productive because Goff is never going to he's never going to put the ball into a dangerous place, allowing Coleman to go get it. So he's going to have to find his way to a different quarterback, a different offense where they're going to ask him to be doing different things. But I think you're seeing it both ways the right way.
Yeah, Scott, and a player that, or actually two of them, and me and Jeff have even kind of discussed it, and I made fun of them at first because they were going in the 20s. I'm like, how are these two players dropping in the 20s of your mock draft? But I want to get your opinion on one, edge rusher Jared Verse, and two, edge rusher I believe it's Latu.
Yes.
The edge rusher out of UCLA. I like both of these prospects, but you look at the teams 10 through 20 as the draft stands right now, a lot of them either A, need offense, or B, need help in the secondary, so I don't see them taking edge. Where do you see those guys falling in the draft after the combine?
So, to me, I think edge rusher number one is the dude from Alabama, Dallas Turner.
Yes.
And Verse then fits in there. Florida State, ACC, he's got good size. He's got all that stuff. I don't think he's crazy explosive. He's a good football player. It's just, how much are teams valuing that position and in what I would consider to be a bit of a down year for the position. I don't love Verse as much as others do, though. So
okay.
I think he has to win with his hands because I'm not sure he's crazy athletic with the first step. Like we see Chop Robinson, and he's so athletic with the first step, but he doesn't win with his hands. Where Verse is the opposite. He doesn't have that first step, and he has to win with his hands, but that takes time. I would think that those guys would be in the 20 range, like the top 20 easily. I mean, they're Verse specific. I think I would pencil him as a top 15 player.
Okay.
Who was the other one?
Latu, because when I watch Latu, his hands are crazy. Like as far as like you're saying, winning with his hands, I think he has really good hands. I think he's explosive, but then obviously has the neck injury and the injury concern. So it's one of those things where it's like he's a great player, but to your point, this is a weak draft and there's other needs. So I just can't get a beat on where he's going to be.
And then you have Field Yates says he's the best edge in the entire class. So
I think for what you're saying about his hands, good job picking that up. His hand usage is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of the ways that he wins is because he's never really engaged with the tackle because he's always keeping himself kind of clean and being able to run and to move where he wants to move because an offensive player's hands is not on him. He does have shorter arms, but his hand usage is great. It's very effective. I think I don't think he's prototype height, weight, speed guy, but I mean, he can move and he does everything you want to do, but you nailed it. The injury is going to be something that teams are going to have to get comfortable with. It did cause him at one point to medically retire. I think it's a neck injury.
Yep.
And now he's been back for 2 years and he seems to be okay, but there's a risk in taking him. I think he's the most polished edge defender in this class, just with his overall game, with the things that he does and his ability to win at multiple levels, whether it's winning outside with speed and quickness or winning inside through hand usage, playing with power, bull rush, that kind of stuff, speed, quickness. Yeah, he's got it all. It's just they have to get comfortable with the medicals.
And Scott, you kind of talked about Bucky Irving. It seems like this draft is more of a slim RB draft, and a guy that kind of made some noise, Blake Corum. Where do you think Blake Corum ends up? And I just wanted to get your thoughts of him at the combine.
He has a weird profile. He's like 5'7" and 207.
Stocky.
Yeah, he's a fire hydrant.
What a comp! I love that.
Yeah, and but he's not small. He's just short.
Yeah.
I think the things that he does really well on film stand out, and it's obvious to anybody. He's much more instinctive in understanding leverage, understanding what's happening in front of him, and then reacting to that kind of stuff. Where a lot of running backs will just run to the designed gap, and at that point in time, let's say the guard got stonewalled, and now you've got a guard and you've got a tackle and a linebacker kind of in that gap, and the running back's mentality is, well, I just had to get there. And Corum is different. He sees that stuff almost instantly as it happens, and then just gets away from it. So to me, his instincts and his ability to process information is off the charts, to where I don't care so much about if he's short or, he weighs 207 or he runs low 4.5s. I think if you're asking him to just run the ball and use leverage and his speed and his ability to make guys miss, he'll be just fine in the NFL. I don't think he's a workhorse player. So I think he's going to be he's going to be in a committee kind of thing. But just an incredibly efficient runner with the ball in his hands to find open space and then to string that by making defenders miss, and also being very tough to tackle because he is so compact. It's tough to tackle 207 pounds in a 5'7" frame. It just is.
Yeah.
He's a good player. The running back class it's not great from, let's say, rounds 1 and 2, but there are some pretty good running backs in this class. Like Marshawn Lloyd from USC is a good player. He's a really good player. I think he's going to be a very productive pro. Jonathan Brooks is injured, but at Texas, he was great last year when he was playing. Trey Benson, I think, is going to bring.
That's what I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah, but
I was just saying, I think Trey Benson, when I just was watching him throughout the season, I think he's the running back in this class with his size and what he can do with his versatility. I think he's the running back that'll translate best in the NFL.
He's super fast. He's got all that stuff. He just runs so upright that he's going to take on contact. And I think he's going to be dealing with some injury stuff, just his running style. But then there's like Jalen Wright from Tennessee is a out in space weapon. As fast as he is, I think he's super interesting. We talked about Corum. Ray Davis from Kentucky is another player I think is a very good player all around. He's not going to blow the doors off you with really anything he does, but he does everything pretty well. So, I don't think we're going to see one in, say, the first round and a half. You might see somebody come up for a player like Benson just because of the speed, but I would say rounds 3, 4, and 5 are going to be filled with pretty productive running backs who have a chance if they get into the right system.
What do you think, Scott? I'm just going to ask this real quick for Jeff too, because Jeff, I think, fell in love with someone at the combine, Braylon Allen at Wisconsin. If we're being honest, though, all of us saw him out there, and he's a big dude. Like he looked like he's going to be a problem in the NFL, and no one's really talking about him much. But if you just saw him there, he looked like he's going to be an issue. Like, he was way bigger than every running back there, and it was very clear, and he looked pretty fast. And I don't know what his 40 was, but when they were doing skill drills, he definitely stood out over a lot of those guys, especially guys that like are ranked higher than him in all these rankings.
That's a workhorse, Scott. That's a workhorse right there.
It is a work. He is a huge guy, and he's fast and build up speed and all that stuff. To me, he needs. If you remember back in the Leonard Fournette draft, Fournette needed time to get up to speed, and once he got up to speed, he was very dangerous. We all have seen the videos of him just running through SEC defenses. But if you were able to get him to stop his feet in the backfield, it was dead for him. It was over. So with with Braylon Allen, there's some of that. You guys are right. He's huge. I think he measured fine. He verticaled 32, put up a bunch on the bench press. I don't think there's anything real splashy about what he does. I just think that, he is, he runs with decisiveness. He'll bounce off tacklers. He's very tough to bring down. Some of the analytics with where running back play is the more forced missed tackles you make, the more effective a runner you are. Mm-hmm. And he is a guy that forces players to miss tackles because he is so hard to get to the ground. If you're telling me that David Montgomery is going to be leaving the Lions soon, and you need a complement for Jahmyr Gibbs, Braylon Allen would be one of those guys I would be very happy to take on just because of the play style, right? So
continue, Scott. Let's continue.
What's that?
No, I said continue. I just like what you're saying.
Are you liking what I'm saying?
I did say, Scott, I don't want the Lions to take a running back. I got a whole thing on it, Scott, about running back. I think it's a lot to get into right now. But what you're saying about Braylon Allen, I just think he hasn't been talked about. I feel like he hasn't been talked about enough. It's like it's. I get why it's been Blake Corum. I think he's already won. But Braylon Allen, to me, they've got Jalen Wright and all these guys. But I think Braylon's going to translate well, or he's going to translate really well.
He can. It's just he is going to be one of those guys who needs tons of volume. So
yes,
he's going to need the 20 plus touches a game. Is he going to get that somewhere? I don't know, but he definitely, to me, he's a north-south guy. Don't ask him to change direction. Just roll through people.
Bulldozer.
Yes. Yeah. And that's good. I mean, second and 6 is good. Right. Yeah. That opens up to keeping yourself in good down and distance is good. So, I mean, I like him too. It's just, he's not anywhere near as athletic as some of the other bigger backs are, but like Marshawn Lloyd from USC was, I want to say in the mid 220s and ran 4.46, and he can do all that real heavy run with power stuff, but he also can make you miss and catch passes out of the backfield and be a danger that way too. So that's the kind of stuff with Allen that you may not be getting, but I understand the idea of, just a bulldozer type dude. Yeah.
Before you go, Scott, by the way, I appreciate you taking the time out for joining the fellas. Scott, it wouldn't be a segment here locally if we didn't ask about JJ McCarthy. So I'm just going to ask. I mean, you saw the pretty throws. To me, at least locally, and Booner brought this up, and he is right. Nationally, I think people wanted to see the arm. I think locally we know what he can do. It's just about what he was asked to do. And now you're seeing JJ mock top 5. I think at this point he's going to go top 10. What do you think JJ did? I think the biggest thing that he did at the combine, Scott, was absolutely crush the interview process. And I've seen some people say he's QB3 over Drake Maye. I mean, where are you at with this stuff? I know it's a little crazy. Where are you at with this?
No,
Scott?
It's not. I mean, I would 100% have him as quarterback 3 over Drake Maye right now. I would. I would. There's some stuff in Maye's game that is just like, I don't know. He has a very strange release, and almost a secondary move inside that release so it's got a really long release where it takes a long time to get rid of the ball. And then he brings the ball closer, almost like in front of his shoulder. And then it's a shot put out of there. So as much as we talked about him as, a guy with a great delivery and power, a strength, arm strength for days and all that stuff. I don't necessarily see that. I think that he has a very unique, strange delivery that takes a long time, that's muddied by bad footwork. And those things aren't necessarily things that you can fix. I mean, if you've been throwing the football a certain way for a long time, it's really tough to change that without changing a lot of other things. But right now, for where he is, I don't think he has great footwork, and the delivery is too long, and it's not consistent enough. And there are just times where the misses are so bad. It's just ugly. But, I get it. I hope that doesn't sound hot takey. I don't
No.
mean it to, because I still think he's a reasonable prospect. But of the 4, I would have him 4th. And, I can understand why JJ is rising. And I think you nailed it. It's the whiteboard stuff, the stuff that we didn't see, where he's talking about. There's a story about, do you guys remember the throw he made against Michigan State where the linebacker turns his head?
Mhm.
That throw was something
Right
that
in the middle.
he individually spotted that linebacker doing that stuff on film and asked them to put in a certain play because he knew he could manipulate that defender and make a throw up the seam. And this is the kind of intellect that there is for a player who is super competitive and tough as nails and is all about winning. And you guys, I'm speaking, like NFL front office people love that stuff. So as much as he's rising now, I could see him rising even more and potentially getting to quarterback 2 range.
Oh my God.
I could, because Daniels is fine, but he's a little older. And do we really want to compare 21-year-old JJ McCarthy to 23-year-old, 24-year-old Jaden Daniels and compare them together? Because one guy's had 3 extra years of maturing, both physically, but also learning how to play the game. And the other one does similar things, but, is a younger player and wasn't asked to do a lot at Michigan. I mean, Jaden Daniels wasn't asked to do all that much against at Arizona State, and he didn't do much in his first year at LSU. He had the huge year last year. So it's just like you can understand it. Like, there are things that make some sense as far as where JJ is. I'm a fan of his game. I like the cerebral nature and his understanding of what a defense is trying to do and how to beat them. I think you're ahead of the game if you're an NFL team, if you bring that guy in, knowing that he can run your offense for you at a high level.
Yeah, great stuff, Scott. We appreciate you. We'd love to get you like a weekly / bi-weekly Scott Bischoff segment leading up to the NFL draft. All right, let's do it. It's a lot of fun talking to you. Of course, you can find Scott and all the things he's up to at Twitter, of course, Bischoff_Scott. He's a Detroit Lions and NFL draft analyst at DetroitLionsPodcast.com and staff writer at footballguys.com. We'll talk to you soon, Scott. We appreciate you a ton.
That sounds good. You guys be well.
All right. You as well. Thank you. And look at that, Mr. Scott Bischoff, man. Talking about Jay, he's not the only one to be
stressing me out. Yeah, real quick, because you can rant about it for all you want because it's your guy. I will say, like, the things that Scott are saying, they do make sense. So as much as I do, like, I still would not take JJ second overall, but the cases that he are making, especially for like Washington, where Washington, I think, is a team that's not like New England. They have tools and stuff like that where JJ can develop, but I still think it's early, but he is making a lot of sense with what he's saying.
So, like, to follow Scott's thing there as well, and we don't need to get into this JJ thing a lot, but like today I listened to Dan Orlowski kind of break it down a little bit, and Dan was one of the first people, I think, as well, to kind of put JJ ahead of Drake Maye, and he broke it down, and he said, like, he said similar to what Scott said, to where Dan said he literally was calling some of his games, Drake Maye's games, and he noticed like how good, like, he stood out, how great of a player he was. But one thing that he kept seeing and people kept calling him and executives were calling him that they were noticing was his mechanics and how inconsistent he was with that. And just like Scott said, his throwing motion and different things, his footwork, like there was just things with Drake Maye to where he has the ceiling. He has everything you need. There was just like, and I feel like that's starting to come out a little bit more, and he didn't test. So no one got to see him. So like when you have those questions, and I don't know if you guys remember the conversation, we were walking out of the combine. I think we were walking back to where we were parked, and I think I brought up, I think JJ, like, and I was like, as much as you guys are hating on JJ right now, Gentry probably remembers this. I was like, you guys are hating on him right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he jumps up into that third position as a quarterback, because one, he went there and he didn't have 100% great combine, but he went out in the field and showed what he could do, and he like confirmed it. Drake Maye didn't do that. Like, And when you have like these conversations of a guy like Dan Orlovsky who calls your games, and he's probably, in my opinion, one of the best in the game right now, analyzing this stuff and breaking quarterbacks down. And he's saying, hey, he might have some mechanical issues and some issues with footwork. Like, if you're looking to bring a guy in to play right away, you don't want to hear that. And Dan said it today. He was like, if you're a team that's looking for a quarterback now, Drake Maye might be a guy that has to sit for a year or two. And that came straight out of Dan Orlovsky's mouth, was he might have to sit for a year or even 2 years. And when you have that and you're sitting there with Washington, maybe who can stick with Sam Howell, or the Patriots, who really don't have anyone right now, or not Seattle, but Denver, who like they need someone, and Kirk leaves Minnesota, they need someone now. They're like, can you do that? Like, that's when you go, okay, maybe we need to go JJ. And I know JJ might need to sit a year to develop, but he has what it takes right now to do that. And so, like, I just heard Dan say that today, and then you guys asked that question to Scott, and I was like, okay, maybe this might be a thing. And I know I said earlier this week, I think he's going to end up going top 5. It's just all seems like it's hitting on all cylinders right now for JJ.
Well, I'll say this about Drake Maye. I think, every quarterback typically doesn't have a CJ Stroud year. And most quarterbacks are going to struggle their first year. Like Bryce Young, for example, won the Heisman, had a great year, and came in and just got humbled immediately. So, not everyone's going to come in and be, exceptional. The Drake Maye thing, although I disagree, I still like Drake Maye. I would say this: if you want to sit him for a year, cool, but don't act like that JJ is a perfect prospect either. I think he has to.
Not at all.
I would pray he doesn't have. Those guys don't have to sit, but I think it would help those guys to sit. Like Jane Daniels, who's a little older, I think he would be able to play right away. Caleb, I think, would be able to play right away. I think besides those two, Michael Penix, he could come in and play. Maybe Bo Nix, like older guys. But Drake Maye, people forget he's only like 21. I think he's 21, 22. Like he's not much older than JJ.
Again, to me, it comes down to JJ participated, and you were able to see that. And if those are now the questions that you're hearing out of Drake, like Drake Maye and all the people talking about him, he didn't show anything at the combine. And JJ's starting to go up, and he tested very well, and just everything together just seems very. It seems like there's a chance JJ, like Drake Maye, could end up being like not the Will Levis to where he drops as far as he did, but he could very well be the quarterback that drops this year. That's what
like
it's
a Deshaun Watson type of thing.
Yeah, and it's just like, I know we're still a month out, but like usually this type of talk, as it picks up more and more, it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and we're a month out, and this is already a conversation. So like, to me, it's just JJ is going to keep moving up, and they're going to have more visits and conversations, and Drake might still like drop a little. They probably all still go top 10, but it's just going to end up being a little bit of a mix-up potentially.
Well, I'll tell you what, fellas, we can get to this top. Literally, it's the 101 top players of last season. I know we talked about it yesterday, and we were kind of waiting on the top 20 players to come out, and we have the list. So we're going to go through them. We're going to talk about who made the list for the Lions. There are more players, which is a great thing for Brad Holmes. I know we kind of talked about it yesterday. And how many Lions are on this list? Well, we'll get to it right now. And I'll show you. So here, let me put this up on the screen, and then I'll get to my tweet. All right, because the tweet it set a lot of people off, and I'm willing to explain. But here's
you need to address that tweet. Like, that needs to be addressed.
Yeah,
in a couple different ways as well.
All right, we got at number 20, got Deron Bland. And these are okay. You see Aiden here at 17. I know we talked about it yesterday, how
behind Josh Allen.
Well, we talked about it yesterday where we think, he'd end up. Shout out to Steve Wilds, by the way. Steve, I didn't forget about you. If you're still in the chat, Steve actually called this. He said he'd be on this list, in the top 20 list. We kind of felt in a way that he's in a similar tier as a Danielle Hunter or Josh Allen, and they're at like 30s and 40s. So I figured if they're that high, where's Aiden going to be? I honestly didn't think he'd be this high. But you see Aiden, you see Amon-Ra St. Brown here at 15. So that's 2 Lions already so far. And then you get a little further down, the TJ Watts, Max Crosby in the teens with Aiden Hutchinson. And then you get to Penei Sewell, who's a top 10 player, which I don't think anybody has a problem. I mean, you could make the argument he's one of the best players, regardless of position in the entire NFL. So I don't hate that. You have, Dexter Lawrence. He's a good player. But they have him 8th. So, That one I'm a little skeptical about. But yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes at 4, Tyreek Hill, Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett at 1. So that's essentially the list, fellas, of who made it. So Amon-Ra, Aiden Hutchinson, and then Penei Sewell kind of wrap up the top 20. And then, of course, we already went through who was on it yesterday with Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, Lee McNeil, Jared Goff. That's 7 guys. And Frank Ragnow, it's 8 guys, 8 Lions in the top 100 players for PFF. And I want to say first, this speaks to Brad Holmes as a GM. I know they weren't all his draft picks. Frank Ragnow wasn't, but still the players they have, the rest were, besides Jared Goff, of course, who was acquired.
A trade with Brad.
Yeah, a trade with Brad. He still acquired him. So, hey, it speaks to what the Lions are building. You got 8 players in the top 100, and most of them on your offense, which is a great thing. And you got a couple defensive players in there as well, and some rookies. So it does. It definitely speaks to Brad. It speaks to what he's building, and it just continues. You can't really say much. The guy's a savant in the draft. The thing I tweeted out today, and I know it set a lot of people off, it was regarding Aiden Hutchinson. And all I said was, I was surprised that he was this high. And listen, we all love Aiden Hutchinson. I think he's one of the best edges, at least young edges, upcoming in the NFL. Like he's gonna continue to rise. He's only in his 2nd year now, going into his 3rd year. And of course, to PFF, it makes sense because they're ranking this list based off PFF, qualifications, which is pressures and stuff like that. So, okay, if you want to go off pressures, I get that. But I tweeted out today, and I mean, I'll read off the tweet just so I don't miss anything I said here. So we can kind of get some clarifications, and I'll let you guys kind of give your thoughts because we haven't talked too much about it. I want to see if I was out of line or not. I'm willing to have conversations. All right,
I'm willing to tell the truth.
Hey, I'm willing to. I'm not going to shy. Hey, by the way, true story, Eduardo. That's actually a true story.
That is a fact. Confirmed.
But here's the tweet. So I essentially said, how is Danielle Hunter 16.5 sacks, ranked 65th? Josh Allen 17.5 sacks, ranked 38th. And Trey Hendrickson, 17 sacks, ranked 43rd. But Aiden Hutchinson, 11.5 sacks, is 17th. I'm not, again, I said sacks aren't everything, but I'm sorry. These guys aren't 30-plus spots worse. And I meant to say 20. That's what I meant. But regardless, my point it wasn't me going at Aiden. It's really me going at PFF for how they rank. Like, it was confusing to me.
You really made it seem like that in the tweet.
Yeah, well, again, it goes back.
I don't think so. Like,
it goes back to guys. It goes back to what I mentioned the other day. People, it's all about. It's not about what you say; it's how you say it. It's people choose. And I didn't like how that sounded, so I'm mad at you, even though I wasn't saying anything about Aiden. I know it came off that way, but all I was trying to say is, like, what are we doing? Like, what's the ranking? I don't understand it. Like, I could have easily came out and said, yeah, Aiden, you're top 17, which he's a great player. It just doesn't really make sense to me. I think Aiden, and me and Booner talked about this, and I'll say this, and I'll pass it along here to you guys. There's tiers in the NFL for edge rushers, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. You have your, Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, Micah Parsons, Max Crosby. You got like those guys. Did I miss anybody?
Nick Bosa.
Thank you. You have the tier 1 edges in the NFL, I would say. And I don't know if you guys would agree with that. Then there's
shot you on my tier list. You're spot on.
Yes, and then there's the next tier. And Booner, this is per Booner as well, because me and Booner kind of agreed on this too. The next tier would be your Danielle Hunter, your Josh Allen, your Trey Hendrickson, your Aiden Hutchinson. And I think you can make an argument, just like me and Booner talked about earlier off air, that you would prefer Hutch over those guys. Like, I'll listen. We'll talk about it. But I don't know how what PFF is essentially saying is he's in the tier 1 with those guys. I don't think he's there yet. Doesn't mean he can't get there. But and I don't want this conversation to be about Aiden. It's more, again, about PFF. Like, how are we ranking this? Again, I got to be fair here. I know we're Lions fans, but when I see something I don't agree with, I'm going to say it. What'd you guys think of the list when you saw it? And is it a fair ranking for Hutch?
I'm going to go real quick, fellas. I'm going to go on a little thing because I've got 2 different things for you here, Jeff. And like you said, we had a conversation after the tweet, like before the show, in regards to like this tier list and all of that. I agree with you full-heartedly. And I think a lot of people in the chat too, and Flannel and like everyone who is even a Hutch Slappy fan, you can't, it's just, where these guys are at in their careers, it's hard to say Aiden Hutchinson is in that tier 1 range. So that's where I'm at a little bit with it. So 17, I do agree. And I said it yesterday, like he should be back. You could say, like, if he was, I don't think that we would even be having this conversation if he was at like 38, 48, 52. Yep. I don't think we would be sitting here like, where is Hutch there? I don't think that would be a thing at all. I think it would just the fact that he's up in that tier 1 to where it's like, okay, he's not there yet. Now I'm going to say this though. He's going to get there this year, in my opinion. And I think there's a huge chance. And once you saw the way he finished the season going on that, what was it? A 4-game stretch with 8 sacks. He led the NFL in the playoffs in sacks. And at the end of the season, if you count all the playoffs combined, which this ranking is regular season and playoffs, he was top 5 in sacks when you combine both the regular season and playoffs. So just by those, like looking at that, and we watch every single Lions game. So you see him play week after week, and you've seen him at his best. I don't think it's hard to argue that he could be in that tier of those guys coming up after this next year. And I sent to you guys in the chat the defensive player of the year odds, and he's right up there with all these guys that we just named. Like his odds are right up there, and he's top 5, top 6 for next year. So I get Jeff. I'm 100% with you. He should be in the 30s, 40s. He should be in there with the Danielle Hunters, Josh Allens, Trey Hendrickson. That should be his spot on this list. I think because it's PFF, and we know how it's been all year. They keep putting out those graphics of him being, leading the league in pressures, leading the league in quarterback hits, top 3 in those top 3. I think they did that, and that's why how they made these rankings. That's why you see CJ Stroud sitting at 100. Like that's why how they kind of went about this whole rankings thing. Now I'm going to say this too, and this is kind of off of the Hutch thing, Jeff. The tweet. This is where I'm at with it a little bit though, and I'm not going at you. I'm just saying this is where I'm at with it. We should, to be honest, we shouldn't even be thinking about Hutch at 17. The storyline of this whole top 100 should be that the Detroit Lions have 8 guys in the top 100. They have 4 guys in the top 25, and they have 3 guys in the top 20. All 3, and I think 7 out of those guys are 6 of those guys Brad Holmes has drafted in the last 3 seasons. That's where, like, to me, when I'm texting you about this, and I'm like, you wonder why the fans, like, people are coming at you. It's because, listen, who cares that he's at 7? I get PFF is a fraud in that, and you want to defraud PFF, and you want to go to war with them. But the conversation of this list, I don't even care he's at 17. They messed up. We know what PFF is about. It should be that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have 8 guys in the top 100 on this Detroit Lions team right now, which we have never seen in our lifetime. 4 guys in the top 25. Think about that, fellas. Like that's insane to me. You have 4 guys on the Detroit Lions in the top 25 on a top 100 list. That is incredible, and it's only going to get more and more and more. Like that's where I'm at with it. Like I get the harps of it because he probably should be in the 40s and 50s, but I don't know. I hope I explained that right because
you did.
And I think next year he could. There's a chance he can be in that tier 1 list and compete for defensive player of the years and kind of take that next step. Like he should. We thought he was year 2. Guess what? He did it the second half of year 2. It took him 8 games to do that, and then he did it. So if I'm sure he knows, and he'll admit it to you as well. Like, why am I 17? Like, I'm sure he's like, he would say the same thing. But I'm sure he would also look at you in the eyes, Jeff, and say, I'll be top 10 next year because he's got a chance to go up and compete with those guys. All right. Rant's over.
Go ahead, Gentry. You want or you want me?
Oh, no, I agree. I don't think he's there yet, and I was kind of surprised to see him given some of the guys above him. But I still do think, and I agree with both you guys, he can move in to be that tier 1 edge rusher. I don't think he's there yet, but he can get there. And like Booner said, it just really speaks to how good the Lions are getting, and to Brad Holmes' credit, how he's built this team to have 8 guys in the top 100. I'm not mad at Hutch for being in there. Do I think he deserves to be 17? No, I think maybe the 40 to 60 range is fair for him. But, I mean, who gives a shit? It's PFF rankings. At the end of the day, they don't really mean anything. And like Booner said, they had a graphic out like every week, it seemed, out on Hutch, even though like when he went through that sack drought, they still were posting graphics. So, PFF liked him a lot. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that much that they had him that high, but I mean, it is what it is. I think he'll still move into that tier 1 edge rusher. He's just still got to get some time under his belt.
Yeah. You guys know I hate PFF, so I don't have to explain much here. I did think your tweet was spot on though, Jeff. I think it was needed.
I don't think it was needed. Like the reason, and Jeff, like I'm not going to, I'm just saying like it wasn't needed because like You've had your pass with Hutch. You've had your pass with Hutch. You know, if anyone's watched you, like you've had your pass with Hutch, and that's fair. And we talked on the phone, like I get that, like that's fair. Like that grin right there. When we talked on the phone on FaceTime, he gave me that grin when I go, you've gone at Hutch a little bit, and he gave me the little like. Like, okay, I know, brother. But no, the thing with that though is, Jeff, it's just that tweet, like again, when this rankings come out, the first thing you didn't think of was, oh my gosh, they have 8 guys in there. They have 4 in the top 25 and 3 in the top 20. The first thing you think about is, why is Aiden Hutchinson at 17? He's not that good. Like,
that's the first thing I thought so too. Because
why did you tweet? Why is CJ Stroud at 100? Like, if you're going at PFF, add that in.
I didn't know we were going to do this, Boone, but let's do this.
But no. I told you all this. You knew we were going to do this because I told you this before. I let you know. We had a phone call before, and I said, and we went back and forth all day on this, and we had a phone call, and I said, listen, if this is a thing, like I'm just going to let you know, like I don't think the tweet was like I'm not going to say like you can't tweet whatever you want. I don't care what you tweet. It was just you're like, why are Hutch slappies coming at me? Well, I'll tell you why. You just went at him. He just took a ricochet shot for no reason.
It's not about what he said. It's just how he said it. It just kind of.
I said if he led.
No.
Jeff, if he led,
this is classic.
Lucas, if he led with Hutch's
let me just say my spiel. This is classic people who are very passionate and fanboy about somebody. If they hear anything that's even close to criticism, that wasn't even criticism, you think completely real. Josh Allen. A lot of hurries and sacks. Daniil Hunter, a lot of hurries and sacks. And Aiden Hutchinson had a lot of hurries, but not sacks. So why is he not in those tiers, even though because he had less help? So I'll take that into account. Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Max Crosby, and Myles Garrett are all in their primes. They're all Defensive Player of the Year candidates. And Aiden Hutchinson simply is not like that. When I see Amon-Ra St. Brown in the top 3 graded wide receivers, I'm like, yep, checks out. When I see Frank Ragnow at 25, I'm like, yep, checks out. We talked about why is Sam Laporta not higher on this list? So when I see Aiden Hutchinson, who I thought possibly was not even on this list at 17, I'm like, what the? They're putting him as the same level as player in the NFL as Josh Allen. Okay? I know different positions, but he's on the same level as player in their eyes as Josh Allen, the quarterback Josh Allen. That's a little ridiculous. That makes me go, the hell am I reading? If Jeff wasn't have tweeted it, I would have tweeted it too. I literally said in the comments under, I was like, I love Hutch, but this is glazing. And it got like 50 likes and like 3 comments.
That's where he went wrong. You at least lead it with something
emotional.
Positive. At least lead it with like, hey, I think he's still in the tier 2 level, but there's no way he's better than Josh Allen and Hendrickson and like these guys. Like, yeah, he's competing with them. Like,
and I agree with Jeff's tweet, by the way, if you were flipping out on me, Lucas. I was just saying the reason people got butthurt and there was so much backlash was probably just how he worded it. And a lot of people did probably agree with him, like me.
The approach.
But it was just like, and I'm not saying Jeff was wrong by any means, because the tweet is 100% correct and spot on.
The right
people
tweet.
Just get in their feelings over their favorite player. Personally, me, I love Hutch, but I was not in my feelings because Jeff was spot on. But that's just my whole spiel on it.
The tweet was correct at the end of the day.
Yes,
the tweet was correct.
But people get butthurt for no reason.
Well, here's the thing, okay? And all right. Guys, and I don't know what you bet by, and I've argued with Sam because Sam will argue pressures, and I don't mind. Pressures do have an impact. That's why me and Sam used to argue. I love Hutch. I think the Lions have a stud in Hutch. I think he's trending upwards. Like, I can sit here and say great things all day, but this is the problem with our society. Is it's like, you should have worded it better. I just want to feel good when I read things. Like, guys, if I have a problem with something, I'm going to say it. That is just how it is. And now, if I made you upset by it, I'm sorry. That wasn't my intention. I just see something and I disagree with it.
All right.
I asked the question. I see Hutch as the 17th best player in the on planet Earth. I'm going to be like, It's not that. Did I say anywhere that Hutch is bad? All I said was, why is Hutch 17 and Daniil, Josh Allen, and Trey are like 30 spots behind him? 20 plus spots behind him. Like, that's all I said. I mean, it's not like I said, yeah, Hutch, man, guy's a bum. Like, no, he's not a bum. He's a great player. But I'm sick of, like, Jeff, you could have worded it better. Like, no, I couldn't.
Right.
Give a damn about wording it better. Like, I don't know.
Jeff,
I don't.
Want
me to butter him up first?
Listen, Jeff. Then I don't want to
perfectly. People just got butthurt over it. I wasn't saying you had to word it better. You worded it perfectly, but people just get the feelings about shit.
The tweet was fine. I just don't want to hear you complain about Slappy's going at you if you're going to put that tweet out there. Then don't come at us. Don't. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to do that tweet, you know exactly what to expect. And you did it knowing what to expect, and then you complain like after, like, man, like these Hutch Slappy, like, dude, come on. Like if you don't want them to complain, just butter them up a little bit, and then
you know what? I'll take them out to a nice Red Lobster dinner. You know what I mean?
All right, I'll come.
I'll buy them. I'll take them to Cold Stone right after. I'll butter them up, and then I'll be like, Hutch, why are you ranked 17th? Like, no, fuck that. If I see something, I'm going to be like, why? All I had was a question. I'm like, when I see rankings, I just question them because I'm like, why? You know, if you're going off, and I get it's PFF, they value different things, but that's all I was saying. Like, it's not a Hutch. The reason why I got frustrated, Booner, is because people took that tweet and immediately spun it. It was like, dude, like, dude, I mean, Hutchinson, he's better than Max Crosby, bro. Like, I'm like, and I'm sitting there going, like, what are we talking about? I mean, can we be objective as fans? That's the only thing I ask.
I agree with you.
Tweet was that bad. I don't think that tweet was that bad.
No, I think, or this whole show here, I think we can all agree. I think there's a lot of people in the chat too, can agree that Aiden Hutchinson should have been back in the 50s, 40s. Like, he should have been back a little ways. He definitely, like, I think he would have. It would have been perfectly fine if he was mixed in the middle of those tiers with the Trey Hendrickson, Daniil Hunter, Josh Allen. Like, if he was back in the middle of those, maybe right behind, like, that would have been fine. But yeah, 17 was pretty. Like, I mean, go back and rewind our show from yesterday. I think I said like 70 or 80. Like, if I would have put him on the list, because we thought he wasn't on the list. So the fact he was at 17, I think. No, I agree with what the tweet said. I agreed with what you said.
Yeah. And that's all, guys. I want to move on here. I know I don't want to spend too much time talking about a tweet, but
I'm still trying to figure out why Sam Laporta is so low as well. Sam Laporta should be, like, you should have tweeted about that. Why is Sam Laporta almost in the 80s?
Yeah, that's another thing too. I mean, Stroud at 100. The list is just goofy. I think but again, I think a lot of places like PFF make those lists to get like a reaction. I mean, we're talking about it.
That's literally what they sit back in their CEO headquarters and be like,
we won.
I know we don't have any actual people here that have played NFL football before, but they want to act like they know what the NFL football is all about. Put CJ Stroud at 100, Aiden Hutchinson at 17, and we'll put Mahomes at 4 to piss people off.
They sound like that.
Release it. Let's see how many interactions it gets this year. Shut up.
Who was the owner of PFF?
I think it's Chris Collinsworth is one of the.
Is that his? That was his thing. Was PFF Chris Collinsworth? Okay, that's what I thought. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Well,
I wasn't sure.
I'll tell you what, guys.
Real quick, I did see someone tweet as well, and this was funny. Someone was like, Micah Parsons at number 3 and Penei Sewell at 10. Penei Sewell dominated Micah Parsons in that Dallas game, and he didn't get anything on Penei. They were like, Penei should be over Micah. And I was very great point.
I think Penei should have been like top 6, top 7. I think he's
the best offensive lineman for sure.
You could argue he's a little higher just because of the value he brings. Like, he's a specimen. But
McCaffrey should have been top 5. I think he was like 6 or 7. Like, it's just.
Well, I will say this, guys. We're going to get to fan mock drafts. It's 9:30, and we do this every Friday. It's fan mock draft Friday. So we asked the people to send us mocks. I know you guys have been sending us a ton of mocks. I'm sorry if we don't get to yours. There's a lot we're trying to swift through here. So we're just kind of picking mocks that, of course, we're finding on our social media, which you can send at official CT pod. We do it every Friday. Send it closer to Friday, preferably. And then it would be a better chance of getting them up because there's so many. But we'll start off with the first one here. I'm going to put it on screen. And this comes from, I'm going to check the name so we make sure. We'll review some of these mock drafts. It comes from, let me make sure. Gibbs Season on Twitter at Gibbs Season 26. So if you're tuning in, appreciate the submission. Here's what he did. All right, we'll get rid of this. So this is his mock draft. He had Graham Barton at 29, tackle out of Duke, which I don't have a problem with at all. I mean, he was in my last mock draft, I think, or my 2 mock drafts ago. And then we have TJ Tampa.
Lukas sent us recently.
Yep. Lucas, he selected him as well. At 61, you got TJ Tampa. 73, Adisa Isaac, edge out of Penn State. 92, Jermaine Burton. 163 takes Renardo Green. 207, Jalen Coker, wide receiver out of Holy Cross. And then at 247, Joshua Carty, kicker out of Stanford. All right, chat. I'm going to you guys in the chat. Give me a grade. You don't have to be nice. Gibbs season, I'm sure, is a nice guy or girl. But yeah, if you think this is an F, you type F. If you think it's an A, you type A. Fellas, what do you think about the mock?
First thing, there's like some needs I feel like that you have to address in this draft, and I don't see an interior defensive lineman in this. And there's 2 corners and 2 wide receivers to where I probably go away a little bit on that. Like a 2 wide receiver, I wouldn't mind bringing like a weapon in, but like going a double on that and then 2 corners, I don't hate it. It's just like I feel like you could have probably gone, interior defensive lineman, maybe even another edge or an interior, like double down on that instead of wide receiver. And then the kicker at the end, I don't hate it. I don't really know any much about Joshua Carty, to be honest, out of Stanford. But give me the Mizzou guy. Give me Booner Jr., man, if you're going to take a kicker.
Booner Jr.
No, I don't hate it. I like a lot of players on here. I'm with Booner I like the 2 corners, especially with TJ Tampa. You guys know I like him, and then you guys know I like Renardo Green as well. But I'm completely out on the 2 wide receivers. I think, if anything, I don't hate Jalen Coker out of Khalif Raymond U and Holy Cross. But if you're going to go 92 and you haven't addressed the defensive interior, I think that's where you go. I'm with you, Booner. You need to address the defensive interior. I'd probably give it like a C+, C. Because he gets good players, it's not needs.
Real quick before you go, Gentry, I want to make a correction. This isn't from Gibbs season. The next one is. This is from Achilleos, I think his name is.
Okay, gotcha.
So this is someone. I'll get to Gibbs season in a second. But Mike, what do you think? I don't like the 2 wide receivers, bro. That's my biggest thing.
No, I mean I like the first 3 picks a lot. I don't know if you could get. I think Steve-O said it. Jermaine Burton, you probably could have got him later, and that's the only thing. I know that's Lucas's guy. He was hype about seeing him at the combine, but I like Renardo Green, especially if you get him that late. I do agree with Booner, though. If you would have addressed the defensive interior, I think, it would have been pretty spot on. But I like it for the most part. I think the first 3 picks are really good. So I give it like a B.
Yeah, he also said here under our he also messaged and said, if you don't know about Jalen Coker, you will.
Yeah. No, I think you guys remember I was like, he's from Khalif Raymond. He looked nice at the combine. And I will say this. I don't know how many players in Holy Cross history have ever been invited to the combine. So it says something.
Yeah, that's fair, actually. That's a great point.
So, well, here's Gibbs season. Now it's Gibbs season on X, on Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it. But this is his submission. So my apologies if you're watching. This is his mock draft. And
running back, Jeff. I see a running back, Jeff.
Oh, wow. Look at that running back, too.
So at 29, he takes Mikey Sanders still. And then at 61, Marshawn Nealon. We got 73, Brandon Dorless. And then you get at 92, Brennan Rice, guard at 163, Zach Zinner. 207, Frank Gore Jr. Hey, 6th-round pick. I'm intrigued. Intrigued. 247, Will Ricard, out of the kicker out of Alabama, which I think we all are kind of on board there. So I actually like this mock. I don't hate it.
I don't really have anything bad to say about this. I mean, if this happened, I don't think I would be like, oh no, Brad. Like Will Ricard at the end too. Frank Gore Jr. baby. I mean, sign me up. Zach Zinner. Woo!
What a say this
final couple picks.
My bad, Booner. I didn't mean to cut you off there at the end, but I will say this. I know I talk about Mikey going in the first round a lot to teams. I don't think Mikey's a team that the Lions are the team that Mikey should take in the first round, but just because of the need. I think you talk about, like Scott brought up the Cowboys. They need a safety. The Packers, they need any help in the secondary. So that's why I have them there. If Mikey's there, trade up for him in the early top of the second. But I think if you're at 29, I just don't think that's we talk about you need to fill the holes in the offseason, and you need a guy on the edge, and need a guy on the defensive interior. You don't really need a hybrid corner / safety because you got that last year with Brian Branch. So I think this is a little high for Mike. I don't hate it. Like if this was the pick, I'd be like, yep, that's the Detroit Lions, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell type of guy. I'm not in love with it in the first round of that spot. But like Brendan Rice in the 3rd round, I would take that 10 times out of 10 because if Brad takes a USC wide receiver, we already saw what happens, and he's the definition of an X, so just a wide body that's a deep threat that can go up and get a a deep ball and with a guy on his chest, and obviously he knows what to expect with Jerry Rice as his dad. So I love it. That's probably
Yeah, no, I don't mind. I think he addresses like every position of need, and I kind of am with Lukas on here. I feel like if they don't go like or an early wide receiver, I feel like round 3, pick 92 will be where they find a wide receiver. So I do like the Brendan Rice pick there, but I think all around he kind of drafts, fills every need. So I don't mind it. Pick up Will Reichard, get the kicker at the end. You got Frank Gore Jr. Even though we don't really want a running back, him at round 6, I think that's pretty solid value. So I don't mind it.
Yeah, honestly, guys, I don't hate this. I don't like the fact that the only corner you took was a slot corner, a nickel. That's the only thing I don't like. I mean, I like Sanders still. I think he's one of those guys you just kind of take because he's a good football player. Like I don't hate that, but they do need an outside corner, and he's somebody like kind of Scott said, he's a little undersized, so he'd be a nickel in the NFL. So and you got Brian Branch there, so it's interesting. I don't hate it. He's a good football player, but besides that, I mean, positionally, I don't hate this draft at all. Like taking Frank Gore in the 6th round, like that's like a Jamar Jefferson, but better. Frank Gore Jr. I mean, he look up his highlights. I liked him a lot too. You do get 2 legends. Their sons. You get Jerry Rice's son,
49er legend too,
and then exactly.
Got a lot of support here in Detroit after that one. If you get that,
yeah, no, I don't hate this one at all. We'll get
up to the games.
We'll get to one more here, and then we'll transition. But here's the last one. It's a 4-rounder, and this is from Keaton. Shout out to Keaton, by the way. We appreciate you. And this is his mock draft at 29. He goes Johnny Newton. And then at 61, Max Melton, 73, Roman Wilson, and 92, Christian Mahogany.
Hey, can I be honest?
I don't know who the fuck Johnny Newton is, boys. I'm not going to lie.
That's Jazan. Yeah, I don't know why people call him Johnny. It must be like a nickname. I knew that was going to come at some point. Someone was going to do that because it was like a couple days ago. I saw Johnny Newton. I'm like, who is that? And then I realized that. That's funny. You didn't know though.
Okay.
To be honest though, these 4 guys right here, I'm all in again. Like I'm like, if this is how you came out of the first four rounds or first 3 rounds, I think I love it. Like Jazan Newton, he's a dog. I mean, that's a guy we've had to trade up for multiple times. If he dropped to 29, bang, would love that. Max Melton, you guys already know him and Tavondre Sweat are like, those are the 2 guys where I was like, I want those guys Honolulu blue. Max Melton, I love him. Roman Wilson, we already. What's so funny over there, Lukas? Eh?
Dude, this dude's been going nuts in the chat all night. It's just been killing me.
Johnny Morton. He's probably been with everyone's mom.
I've seen this guy in the chat all night. He has been killing it. Roman Wilson, obviously a dog, and Christian Mahogany. That's the offensive lineman late, like him and BB. I'm in on those guys, especially with that 20-yard shuttle that Scott's talked about. Like those type of stats. Usually you're like, those are just those type of stats to me, like. Players that have done that play in 80% of snaps. That is like a big deal. So I think Christian Mahogany is an amazing pick. So the first 3 rounds, this is a great. I'll give this an A.
Yeah, boys, this would be a miracle. You guys know how I feel about Johnny Newton or Jazan Newton, whichever name or alias he wants to go under. If you get him at 29, you could end the draft right there, and I'd be happy. I wouldn't care. But you get Max Melton, Roman, and Christian Mahogany, I'd be in love with it. I've seen a lot of Roman comps to Amon-Ra St. Brown over the last couple of weeks. So you're able to get a guy like that who just creates problems to go in the other side of the slot with Amon-Ra. I mean, Brad would be cooking with this one. This is an A for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the first 2 picks, obviously, we've been so high on Max Melton, and we've been getting him in like the 90s and around that area. But to get him at 61, I still wouldn't hate it because of the player you're getting. Obviously, like Lukas pointed out, Roman Wilson, very similar to Amon-Ra St. Brown. And like Scott said, kind of with Ladd McConkey, like to have 2 of the same wide receivers, how much that would benefit Jared Goff. So I really don't hate it from that aspect. And then Mahogany, obviously, Jeff has been pretty high on him too since like our first mock draft. To snag one of the best guards available at pick 92, I don't hate it either. So I'd give it a B+ A.
Yeah, honestly, I like this draft. I don't mind it at all. I don't even hate. You get Max Melton, Johnny Newton, two guys that can come in right away, help your defense. Roman Wilson, I think he'd be an interesting pick, and then you address guards. So for a 3-rounder, 4 picks, I don't hate this one at all. I want to try and get to one more mock here that was sent. I want to Devin Collins. Not sure who that is.
Is that a prospect or is that someone on Twitter?
That someone sent us. That's his name.
Oh, okay. Sound like someone that competed in the combine. Devin Collins, dude.
Well, yeah. Well, this is Devin Collins. I want to get to his, and he even made some edits to it, and then we'll move on. I don't want to leave. He just sent it, so I want to make sure we get to it. Let me put this one on the screen here. All right, here it is. We'll do this one, last one. All right, there's this mock. So it's a full draft. He did trade back though, picks at 40, and he took TJ Tampa. And then at 61, Braden Fisk, 73, Xavier Legette, 99, took Kalen Bullock, 101, Marshawn Lloyd, who Scott just kind of talked about. And then you get Charles Turner at 161. 204, you get tight end Tip Ryman. And then at 249, you get Frank Crum.
Frank Crum.
Who named their kid Tip, man? You set him up for failure. You're coming out the womb. You're naming him Tip.
Yeah, that's
that is tough. What a name, back to back, Tip and Crumb.
I wish you could combine the first and last name. Just be Tip Crumb. That would be
imagine being a GM. If I was a GM, you know what I would do? I would just draft every year like the coolest names, like the next coolest name. Like I would have best player available still, but like I would go by names, dude. Having Tip and Crumb on your team, that's
no, you don't want that on your team. You don't want that.
Dude, imagine just building a team just because of their last names or their name. Like that'd be elite. Win a Super Bowl like that.
Oh,
there you go, bro.
Yeah, Joey said, "Act like your names are any better." Yeah, I'm Booner. Like my name's basically Boner with an extra O. He put Bloomer.
To be honest, I like the first four picks of this, but I mean the last three not too familiar with. And then Marshawn Lloyd, I know Scott brought him up and said he was one of the running backs that he was higher on. But I mean, I'm a fan of the first three, but you don't really address the edge rusher position. Maybe you do that in the off season. That's one thing that I notice about this one. But I mean, I like the first four picks.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the TJ Tampa, to Braden Fisk, to Xavier Legette. Then you finish it off with Kalen Bullock. I'd be barking. Brad would have me barking for a good 2 days after that first 2 rounds, or I guess 3, but knocked it out of the park. And I think after took a little decline, but I don't hate it. I don't really.
I'm
not in on this
as far as the running back. Like I would double up on corner before I take a running back, or double up on edge. I mean, I don't think did he get an edge in this?
No, so that's the thing. It's like I would rather take the running back and tight end out. Like I'm on the side here, and then almost with Jeff. Like I don't mind a running back in late rounds as long as you kind of address what you needed and got the best players available. Like you got what you needed. But like tight end, like I'm kind of out on a tight end in this year's draft. And if I'm just being completely honest, like I don't see kind of a need for you to have to address that this year. To where you like if you go a whole draft and you don't get a defensive end, but you get a tight end. To me, that's a problem. Like what are we doing here? Like and I know like you don't need to address every position, but in the draft, and you can go free agency, but there are some guys in this draft you can get to where you don't really need to go get a tight end. I don't know. That's just where I'm at with that.
Yeah, and for I just want to address this too real quick because I know some people in the chat were like, "Where's my mock at?" Please let me know specifically. Especially if you're a member of the channel here, I want to make sure you get your mock drafts read. So if you sent your mock draft, please let me know where you sent it so I can go find it. Because I want to make sure the members, not saying the people who aren't members aren't valued, but I want to make sure, especially if you're a member, you get your mock read. Especially here, we got another month and a half before the draft, so we will read yours. I got you.
Was that a bet? What was that, Gentry? Was my bet going bad? Was that a wings?
Yeah, Wings are down 3-0 in the first period. I have
Gentry's got the prize.
That's my biggest bet I put on of the day. That's not. Oh man,
I don't know. I mean, I have it out above me. I haven't been watching the whole entire time. Hasn't looked the greatest, but like, what the fuck?
What do you think's going on, Gentry? What's going through the mind of BFD?
The forwards have 2 shots on goal, Gentry.
Like. I don't want to say it's all one player, but like I said, when you're missing the void of like Dylan Larkin, he kind of makes things go round, and he hasn't really gotten enough credit for that. But like he generates so much offense, so much spacing that I think when you take him out the lineup, they don't look the same. Even though with the depth, they need like that number one centerman. Even though people have been saying it might not be him or whatnot, he's lived up to that. And without him, it just when you have great wingers like the Red Wings do on their first line, when you don't have that center to like make it all go around, sometimes it just doesn't come together nicely. And I mean, their defense has been playing, shaky at times, but they've been pretty good. So, I mean,
how long is Larkin out? Do you know?
It's 2 weeks. So I want to say it was 5 to 6 games that he would actually miss in that span. And I think obviously we're like 2 of them down. But yeah, so he still got like 4 or 5 more maybe. So tough.
Gentry, I almost might be hitting the panic button on my end over here with my bet that I have with the playoff bet. I'm over here. I'm panicking.
Do you think like when Larkin comes back, they'll get into that form like that they were in that win streak?
Yeah, I think he's the type of player that like picks up things, even if he missed time, he's going to pick up right where he left off. And I think they do have a fairly easier schedule than some of the teams around them. So I think it's still possible, but like the room for error is becoming a lot less slim after you may lose 4 games in a row.
It
felt like tonight down 3.
Even before he went down, like the playoff race was already so close to where like now he goes down and you lose 2 or 3 straight or whatever it is. It's like now it's like, okay, it's tough. You don't like when you're in it. I feel like you don't want to like have to be able to chase it again. And then that's what it feels like it might happen. It's scary.
And like,
I don't like
the division's so good too, so it's tough.
We'll get to Mailbag here. Eduardo O'Neill, Mailbag. After listening to the Newsome segment, it feels like to me, no disrespect. I love when people say that. No matter who we bring in, Jeff will have a problem with. So how can Brad please you then, Jeff? Tell us.
I love that.
Okay, here's my thing with that, and it's funny having a guy like Brad who values a lot more than just can he play football. There's so much that goes into it. So that's why I'm a little more picky, and as I should be, because guess who else is picky? I don't know, Brad Holmes. And it's funny because I was the one that wanted Chase Young at the deadline, and it didn't happen. So it's not like I'm always picky. I just try to look at things like, well, Brad liked this player off the field, on the field, character, does everything check out? And if I don't think it does, then, I'm going to say, assuming it won't happen.
Brad's going to pull a Uno reverse on you and bring him home. That's what he's going to do.
He's going to throw a wild card down.
I'll tell you what, if it happens, I won't be mad. I'm trying to speak of like, will Brad be interested? And that's how I try to answer these questions.
I would like to. What I'm going to do, Jeff, I'm going to keep a tracker of when we go over these players. Like when you say like yes to a player, we're going to have like maybe we can get a soundboard and we have like a.
I mean, hey, I'll give you a couple. I mean, I'll give
like
you
Jeff's loved a bunch of players.
Autry.
Danico Autry, me and you, we were on the same page. Okay,
Floyd, but Floyd I talked about.
Like you said,
Darius
you are
Williams.
picky. You are picky. So when there's a guy, dude, we need like a soundboard, like a button do we hit, and it's like a Jeff like I don't know, we need something, dude. Because
to be fair, we went through Tim's list or whatever yesterday, and Jeff agreed for the most part with every guy with us. So I think we're cutting into Jeff a little too hard.
I also don't want to be the guy that's like him. I like him.
Yeah,
I like you can't sign everybody. You know what I mean? Like you got to be fair. Like, does this guy make sense?
You're like you said, you're like Brad Holmes. You're a little more picky, but that's what you need because Brad's picky. Brad literally said, "I'm not going to bring just anyone in the building. Like I'm going to make sure these are our guys." So you are our Brad Holmes of the show. I respect that.
Answer 14 Mailbag. How do you submit a mock to? You can do it any social media platform right above here at Official CT Pod. And we'll get yours. I know you're a member, Answer 14, so message us, tell me you're a member, and I'll make sure we bump you up because I want to make sure the members get taken care of 100%. That's always the most important thing. Steve David, Mailbag. Gentry, is it okay to panic about the Wings yet? I'm nervous.
I mean, it's definitely not good losing, this many in a row, but I think there's still a lot of time left, and as long as they, kind of trade games until, cover up the pain until Larkin gets back, I think they'll be fine. I mean, there's some reason to panic. Obviously, like I said, you don't want to lose this many games in a row, but I'm still confident in this team.
Yeah.
Other teams are going to go through stretches like this too. And like I said, we have the easier schedule out of the bunch. So I think they'll be fine.
Anakin He says, Mailbag, can you tell the chat that I'm trying to fix the blocks and that I did not mean to block anyone and I'm working on fixing it. And then conversely, Coach Walk 37, can you please tell anything? I'm so sorry that I made him mad. What is going on in the chat?
Yeah, the chat's been going nuts.
They've been trolling him. They've been
I
trolling
think they're
Anakin.
trolling Anakin. I could be wrong, but like I saw it while Scott was on. I think there's like a bit of trolling going on here.
That is funny. ETN Mailbag, what's the best sport to watch live in person, in your opinion? Never seen it in person, but I will say undoubtedly. You can make the argument for soccer, because that's probably dude, yes. And then I would say the UFC. UFC is number one.
I've been to a lot of NFL games, but my favorite thing I've ever watched, I talked to you about, was bare knuckle fighting. That was something. So yeah, I'd be down with it. Soccer though, I get the fan experience, but I'd be sitting there.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
It's
Golf.
without a doubt, hockey.
Golf. Get out
I'm
of
just
here.
kidding.
I
I don't know.
Hockey. I've never been to a hockey game
man.
before.
All the people in the chat could probably speak onto it. Like going to the Joe and watching playoff hockey was unreal. Like the atmosphere, can't beat it. Playoff hockey.
I don't even know what I would pick, to be honest. I don't know. I'm a basketball guy growing up, so but like we haven't had a good Pistons team or anything, so I don't know. College basketball live. If you go to a big game, college football actually. A college football went to Michigan State.
Yeah.
College football is an atmosphere. If you've ever been to one, dude. Oh my!
I was
gosh.
at the Monster Pump game or whatever, and
that was probably
they returned it right into the end zone that I was sitting at, and dude, that was probably the most depressing moment I've had in a long time.
Hey, crazy off topic thing. We should go to like a USFL game, and just like go to one.
Chirping,
dude. Actually,
that would be funny as well.
When you say that the UFL, so they just combined with the XFL, so it's the UFL now.
Oh, the UFL. Excuse me.
Yeah, so it's the UFL now, and they still have, but Roman, formerly we worked with him.
Yeah,
Bruno, shout out Roman. He said he got a job with the Michigan Panthers as a season-long communications assistant for the Michigan Panthers. So maybe we can hit him up, because he's in the communications there. So maybe we can hit him up and maybe get some passes for a couple games and
give some
go
publicity.
cover it.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Go down on the field. Maybe you can hook us up and we get on the field. I know I went to college with one of their running backs, Nate McCrary, who played for the Browns for a little bit. Shout out. So he's with the Michigan Panthers now as well. So we've got some connections. Maybe we'll make that happen. I like that.
Is Jeff Fisher still the coach?
I believe so. Yeah.
Do you ever see the Hard Knock footage when Jeff Fisher gets fired?
No.
Oh my God! You have, when we're done here, boys, we'll hop in the Discord, play some Fortnite, and it's so funny. It's one of the
it's not Jeff Fisher. It's Mike Nolan.
Oh, that's who it is. Yeah, I do remember that.
Jeff Fisher was the coach of a team around here, though.
Yeah,
he was. He was a coach of the Panthers, and then they drafted Shea Patterson #1. Remember?
Get him out.
Hey, another 419
Nolan was a
legend.
head coach for the 49ers, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah.
For 3 seasons. That's crazy. It's crazy to see some former head coaches just in the UFL now, just coaching these games. It's wild.
Chef,
they need a long snapper.
Hey, that's Boone right there. We should do a video. Imagine if we could do content.
We got to get your shuttle. We got to get you under a 447 shuttle, Booner.
Okay, I'm gonna hit Roman. We should hit them up too. Maybe we can do a video. I get on a Panthers whole like thing, and I actually try out as a joke as a long snapper. I'm down for that. Imagine if I tore my ACL doing it. Oh my gosh, that would be great content.
There's his ACL long.
It's like when Jared Goff went undercover for that college team as the quarterback.
Yes.
That'd be like you at long snapping, Booner.
And we should do that. I'm down for that. I will sacrifice, and I would do that. That would be awesome.
Chef talks. Mailbag. It's a moment of truth, Jeff. Will you or won't you? Let's give Jeff the floor, fellas. Well,
what?
He wants me to say the name. The name he calls Jahmyr Gibbs, which is the electrician.
Oh.
Which, you know what, Chef? I don't know. It ain't hitting. You know what I mean? Just here come down the sideline, the electrician. No,
the electrician. You can hear Gus Johnson.
Yeah, say it in the Gus Johnson voice.
Maserati Marv.
It's I don't even know how you. Yeah, that's a tough one. You got to do
electrician give.
The electrician or something like that, man. I don't know how. But no, yeah, electrician's cool, Chef. It's cool. I still like Big Game Gibbs. That's what I'm calling him.
that,
All right.
that was like the nicest way, dude. You're like, yeah, it's cool.
Hey, Chef, you call him whatever you want. The hell you want to call him. All right. The
Shout out,
electrician, you can call him the plumber. I mean, whatever, man. Like, you call
The mechanic.
you can wait, is this real? Breaking.
No. We've got team bonding tonight. We've got a team building.
Let me go on
thing
Twitter.
going on.
Hold on.
Yeah, that's a big one. All right, let's get to some more questions.
We've got team building tonight. We need that.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, hopefully not. That would be bad, actually. Joey Woodpine 69 mailbag. Why is everyone mad at Yzerman at the deadline? Yeah, Mike. Why is everyone butthurt?
They, like Booner said earlier, they've been expecting playoffs for a long time, and people may think they're like a piece or two away, and kind of not adding that guy and just playing it safe. Just like, why was everyone mad at Brad Holmes at the deadline?
It's fair,
because
guess what? They went to the NFC Championship
away, and then they got that far in the playoffs, and now they're looking back like, how much would that piece have helped? So kind of the same situation with the Red Wings, but yeah.
There you go. Hey, I think he has more of a. To be fair, comparing him to Brad, at least Yzerman has more of a resume to do stuff like that. At the time with Brad, you're kind of like, because he hasn't proven himself as a GM. Like Yzerman's done this at a high. I mean, he's won.
Yeah, I mean, Yzerman's won a Stanley Cup, as a player and a GM, and
absolutely
every deadline since he's been a GM. No matter if it's been with Detroit or Tampa, he's been very active and made very good moves. So he's not going to do anything out of the realm that's going to hurt his team or hurt the trajectory of his team.
I solved this today.
No, you didn't.
All right, we got to get out of here.
I'm proud of you, Boone. How many weeks?
Today, I learned how to do it. I looked it up online, and they gave me a little thing. I solved the whole thing.
So you cheated.
No, I mean, that's how you learn. Is you have to figure out. You have to learn. You have to do some research. You got to.
You're cutting corners, dude. Next thing
that's
you know,
how everyone that solves.
You're gonna be wearing Uno cards on your glasses.
Hey, don't lie, Boone. Don't lie. You took off the little stickers, placed them all white on one side.
I did an all white Rubik's cube.
Guys,
I know it's
guys.
I know what you're doing.
If you guys are wondering how people learn to solve them, they look it up and then they get the technique down and then they solve it. People don't just sit there out of nowhere without any knowledge. And I almost just
they're not a real man. Flip the whole Rubik's cube.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to put it on camera again.
Yeah, you didn't solve it. You didn't solve it.
No.
Oh, shit! I knew it. I called that shit. Yeah.
Whoa.
He said he looked up online. Oh my God.
Hey.
No, dude, I've looked up online plenty of times and I still couldn't figure out how to solve it. That thing is tough, dude. I'll sit there for hours.
Chef, did you just miss? It's the electrician. That's your boy. That's your name. All right, you can have it. I'm gonna go with Big Game Gibbs, Chef. But hey, you can have the electrician. You could copyright it. You can do whatever. Put it on a t-shirt.
Going, Chef.
Get the merch going, Chef. Again, the electrician. That's what I don't know about that. Dan Miller ain't gonna like that one.
There's too many syllables in electrician.
Yeah,
electrician.
Don't play Fortnite.
Like 5 of them. It needs to be like a 2-syllable thing.
Lucas is like electrician.
Electrician.
And then Eduardo says Big Game Gibbs fumbled in the biggest game of his career. Well, to be fair, I said Big Game with an N, which he was up there in 20-yard games. All right,
led the NFL.
Come on. Give me that one, Eduardo. I love you, man. You're the GOAT. All right, we'll get out of here. Appreciate you guys.
All right, man.
Everyone for tuning in on a Friday. You guys probably had better things to do, but you chose to hang with the fellas. So we appreciate you for that. We'll be back Monday. Again, content throughout the weekend. Thank you to all our members, of course. I want to start. We're planning some things for specifically like member giveaways. We want to do things kind of dedicated for members because we do appreciate you guys more than you know. It's not just, hey, you're a member. No, we thank you. And for tuning in, even if you're not a member. But until Monday, have a great weekend. We'll be in Royal Oak if anybody's out in the area. So, hey, come say hi.
That's tomorrow, right?
Yep, we'll be in there. We'll be out there tomorrow. So,
Big
hey,
day.
we'll catch the UFC fights out there. But until Monday, we'll see you guys. Have a great weekend. Have a blessed weekend.
Peace.